Testing. Testing.
Good afternoon. The meeting of the Nottoway County Board of Supervisors now come to order. There are two things I want to mention before we get started. We have some children, some champions in the audience, and we're going to call on them first. After we do the Pledge of Allegiance, we're going to call on them to come forward, and we'll do a resolution with them, okay? The second thing I want to mention to you is when we do the delegations from the public, each person is given 5 minutes. 5 minutes. We have 12 people here tonight to speak, who have signed up to speak. If you have not signed up, you do not get a chance to speak, okay? So if you need to sign up, you should have signed up. Okay. Mr. Bowen, will you do the invocation for us, please?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let's go to the Father. Lord, again, we thank you for this time that we can come together. And Father, it's such a hot and humid day, but it's a day you made, and we're thankful for it. Lord, we thank you for these young people that has participated in baseball, softball. Father, it gives me great memories in '76 when we went to the World Series in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and what a wonderful memory that was. But Father, the lessons that you learn off the ball field is one we need to take with us as well. And Lord, we lift up the Marines that I just got word of that have been killed in Afghanistan. And Father, we lift their families up. There's so many out there that's lost loved ones. Father, we're so thankful that we live in a country that people are trying to get to and not trying to leave. And Lord, we know you gave us that blessing. And we ask all these things through Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior. Amen.
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 Will you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge of
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'm going to get, will you give the resolution?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, we're going to read the resolution for you all to hear, and then we'll have the coaches and the team to come forward, please.
Good evening, everyone. Resolution recognizing the Virginia Nottoway Angels All-Star 10 and Up softball team. Whereas the Virginia Nottoway Angels All-Star 10 and under softball team came together as a team during the 2021 Dixie Youth League softball session. And whereas the Virginia Nottoway Angels All-Stars 10 and under girls softball team was undefeated in District 1 tournament, advancing to the Virginia State Dixie Youth League girls softball tournament. And whereas the Virginia Nottoway Angels All-Stars 10 and under girls softball team demonstrated tenacity and ability to overcome adversity after experiencing a loss early in the state tournament, advancing to the championship game and winning the Virginia State Championship. And whereas the Virginia Nottoway Angels All-Stars 10 and under girls softball team advanced to the Dixie World Series held in Prince George County in July 2021, representing the Commonwealth of Virginia and Nottoway County as Virginia State champions, and defeated teams from Louisiana and Tennessee prior to exiting the tournament. And whereas the Virginia Nottoway Angels All-Star 10 and under softball team completed their postseason with a 10-win, 3-loss record, finishing third in the Dixie World Series. Whereas the Virginia Nottoway Angels All-Star 10 and under softball team displayed good sportsmanship, hard work, and dedication, and represented Nottoway County in a positive manner. Now, therefore, be resolved that the Nottoway County Board of Supervisors hereby formally congratulates and recognizes the Virginia Nottoway Angels All-Star 10 and under softball team, its players, coaches, and managers for completion of a highly successful postseason effort. And be it further resolved that the Nottoway County Board of Supervisors expresses the county's appreciation for the positive recognition that the Nottoway Angels All-Star 10 and under softball team has brought to Nottoway County, and urges all citizens to reflect upon the dedication, determination, and perseverance that enabled the team to become Virginia State champions. Approved this 26th day of August 2021. Chairman C. Vaughn, Chairman.
Thank you. Before we do this, I wanted the coaches to stand, and I'm going to call your name. Please stand. And then I'll call the name of all of the young people who played, the members of the team. The first coach would be John Austin. Karen Crozer.
She's not here.
She's not here. Well, Charlie Atkinson. And the players are Meadow Austin, Sidney Shute, Brooklyn Thomas, Emma Lilly, Jaden Banks, Hallie Hudson, Autumn Atkins, Daisha Lawrence, Mackenzie Robinson, Olivia Spratlin, Hayden Hudson, and Brooklyn Atkinson. Now, will you all please come forward, and I'll meet you down there.
Yes, sir.
Lynn, come on down, please.
Mr. Vaughn, while they're going there, I got to recognize one special child in that group. Jaden Banks, people don't realize that, number 12, but that's my niece. We don't exactly look alike, but we think alike, don't we, Jaden?
Thank God for that.
Y'all did a good job, and we enjoyed. I know my sister kept me up,
Would you help me to
letting me know what's going on play by play just about. So good job, ladies. Good job.
And I'm going to present this to the coach, but what we have done is we got a resolution for each of you, okay? So you can take that home and get your parents to put a frame on it. And to the coaches, let me present this to you all. Let me come over here where I can shake your hand. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Good work.
Thank you.
Very good. I want y'all to know we're real proud of you.
Hey, Coach. Coach. We got extras. If you got some girls that aren't here, grab them. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Vaughn, let's give him a big standing ovation. Let's get
You're welcome. Y'all did a good job.
Thank you. That's good. A good way to kick the meeting off.
Yeah.
Congratulations, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. Good representation for the county. Yeah, I say let's give it up on a high note. All right, what's the next on the agenda here, buddy?
We'll now have delegations from the public.
Need that.
Wait a minute, I got to approve the agenda.
Mr. Chairman,
I need a motion to approve the agenda.
I make a motion we approve the agenda with the amendment of putting those young ladies first. Is that something else I'm missing?
Okay.
Oh, it's on there? Okay, yeah, I see it in the little right. Thank you.
Do I do this thing or later?
Yeah, go ahead. And then we'll either approve or...
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Sheriff. We've got them down.
Go ahead. Thank you. Sure.
You want me to do this?
Mr. Made a motion to approve.
Yes. Yeah.
And did he get a second? We need a second.
second.
You did second. It's been moved and seconded that we approve the agenda. Question.
Do I add this name? Okay. We have a potential motion. In order to consider a grant opportunity that was conveyed on August 23, 2021 by Virginia Department of Elections, which is due September 3, 2021, I move to invoke the emergency allowance of Section 5.1 of the current Nottaway County Board of Supervisors Rule of Procedure and allow an item, procurement of funding for Sunday voting to be added to tonight's agenda under new business.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to second that for discussion, please.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded that we
right.
approve the motion with the amendment, the emergency amendment. Those in favor, let it be known by the usual sign.
Mr. Chairman,
Discussion.
Question.
just for clarification purposes, earlier this year, the board had set some determinations that if certain items won't end by a certain date, that we would not amend the agenda, only under emergency situations. Okay, so just for clarification for the public, and if anybody has questions up here, my question would be, is this an emergency situation, and what dictates that to be an emergency situation?
Okay.
I got to, Mr. Chairman, hold that thought. I'm kind of confused here. So I put a motion on the floor to approve the agenda. We didn't vote on that.
Right.
Okay, so we got to follow through with that first, right? Are you asking me to accept that amendment?
Yes.
Okay, because she put a motion too. Okay, so, all right. So I'm willing to accept that amendment, waiting for the clarification of the question that Mr. Rourke is asking.
Okay. Do you want to clarify that?
Relative to the motion?
What brings about the emergency?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, the situation is on Monday, county received notification from the Virginia Department of Elections that there is a funding opportunity that would allow for Sunday voting. However, it's a reimbursable grant. I have been in contact with the staff there at that department and been advised that it is a first-come, first-served grant, and it's a reimbursable grant. I think the question right now before you is whether or not to amend the agenda before you take up the details of the issue. But the question before you is, do you want to amend your agenda and allow this in? I will add that again, we received the information on Monday. The deadline for the grant is September the 3rd.
Okay.
But the issue before you now is whether or not to amend your agenda.
This might be one of these cases, Mr. Vaughn, that you got, might not be an emergency to some people, but might be an emergency to other people. So I'm okay with putting it on the agenda and amending the agenda, because I don't want to stifle somebody's voice and let them hear what they got to say. So I'm okay changing that that motion that I put, amending that, add this to the agenda. Is that the last one, Helen? Is that okay? And
Yes, I'll let the second stand. I just want clarification for public, simply because, it was talked about in what dictates an emergency, because some people, as you said, an emergency may be life or death. Right. Some citizens having services could be dictated as an emergency. I'm fine with letting my second stand.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we approve the amendment. Those in favor, let it be known by the usual sign.
Aye.
Those opposed, the ayes have it. Okay. Well, now, and this will be put on under new business. Delegation from the public. We'll start with Mr. Cruz.
Honorable members of the board, I want to thank you for granting me the opportunity to speak tonight. I also want to thank you for amending your agenda. I know it's very short notice. I'm here to speak on the importance of ensuring that our elections are fully funded. There are multiple items before you tonight from the Electoral Board and the Registrar to consider. I'm asking you to fully fund all of them. Of particular importance is the reimbursement grant that officially passed the Virginia General Assembly the other week. Last night, the Electoral Board voted to apply for the reimbursement grant to add 2 additional days of voting to the election calendar, 2 Sundays at the end of October. Here is how the situation looks from our neighboring counties. Amelia County has moved once again, to allow early voting for 4 Saturdays in October. Brunswick County and Lunenburg County have voted to apply for the reimbursement grant for Sunday. The Electoral Board is fighting to bring Nottoway County in line with our neighboring counties. They are just attempting to add 2 Sundays to the voting calendar. The registrar is claiming that in order to do this, that she needs a full-time assistant just for adding 2 days. I know that sounds ridiculous. However, she is going to have to justify that expense to the Virginia Department of Elections when she submits that reimbursement grant. I also want the board to understand that regardless of whether or not early voting is expanded, it is my personal belief that she needs that additional staff member. To the best of my knowledge, only the registrar and her assistant have approval to use Veris, which is the Virginia Department of Election database. This is required for early voting. We have the Delta variant spreading around Nottoway County like wildfire. If something happens to the registrar or her assistant, we could very well lose the early voting location in Blackstone because no one with access to Veris will be able to oversee it. The fight that is going on should not be a partisan fight. Voting is a fundamental right that every single American citizen has. When a polling location opens or time opens, it doesn't open to Democrats or Republicans. It opens up to everyone. There are people who do not trust the mail-in ballot process. There are people who cannot get to early vote on Monday through Friday, and in some cases even on Saturday because they work. Because the polling locations do not open until after people get to work and close before people get off work. They do not have adequate access. There are elderly and disabled people in our community who only have reliable transportation on Sunday to get to church, who would have the ability to go and vote afterward. There are some things in Nottoway County that should not be partisan, dealing with the situation of trash, emergency services, and voting. These are things that people in this county need and rely on. These shouldn't be nonpartisan issues. Please fully fund the registrar and the electoral board, and do not let any drama or conflict dissuade you from doing what is right for the citizens of Nottoway County. Thank you very much for allowing me to address the board tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Rose. Mr. Reynolds.
Good evening. I'm
Good evening.
Tom Reynolds. I live right down the road on West Courthouse Road. I've lived in Nottoway County about 22 years, and I love it out here. Really do. And when I signed up to speak tonight, the topic that I put down was budget. Okay? I want to make sure that everyone understands the reason for the emergency request from the Electoral Board. It's not to fund Saturday voting. That was already approved by the county. That's covered. It was not to approve the labor required to run the office. That's covered. This request, from my understanding of being at the meeting last night, is solely to cover extra labor and provide extra resources for Sunday voting. It's not a general budget request because all of a sudden somebody discovered that they're going to come up short if they don't get an extension from this board. That is not the case, as some would have you believe. I heard last night a lot of different reasons, pro and con, to Sunday voting. My main concern is that due to whatever reason, time, the passage of the law, the signature by the governor that said that the counties had the option, it did not say will, it did not say shall allow Sunday voting. The new law says may allow Sunday voting. And I heard a lot of pros and cons last night. A lot of heartfelt responses both ways. My concern is that we may be stepping outside of some of the limitations morally, ethically, and legally by coming in at the last minute to request additional funds for something that is not mandated by the state. Regardless of whether someone is in favor of Sunday voting or can't stand the idea, I'm afraid that due to certain circumstances, we may be stepping outside of some boundaries as far as reallocating money, etc. One of the board members last night at the electoral committee said, well, there's always some wiggle room. I worked for 32 years in a Fortune 100 company. Yes, there was wiggle room, but don't you let that comptroller catch you moving line item to line item to line item without approval from the financial director. And don't let the IRS catch you fudging the books. I think we should think very, very hard about proving any extension of funds, whether it be an emergency basis or whether it be in the future, and make sure it's all for the benefit of all Nottoway citizens. We heard some data last night, and I verified it today, where Saturday voting in the 2020 election cost approximately $100 to $120 per person in order to allow 86 people to vote on Saturday. To me, I'd rather take a handful of money and give each one of them $110 and say, go buy you some food, pay your electric bill, buy some propane, do what you've got to do, because that is not cost effective. There is no benefit to the majority of Nottoway citizens by expending that amount of money per person when there are other ways. There's 6-day voting now. There's mail-in voting now. There are ballot drop boxes now. There are other ways that people can, who want to vote, can vote. And my take on this, in summary, is that if people want to vote, they'll find a way. The community needs to take care of people who want to vote, can't get to the polls, not government. Thank you for hearing me.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you,
Reynolds.
Mr. Reynolds.
Thank you.
Mr. Page?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to interrupt Mr. Page. Good. Congratulations on your position on the board. I didn't realize that until yesterday. So.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Thank you for allowing me to speak, by the way. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, as well. First, I would like to welcome Mr. Costin to the county.
Thank you.
Sir, we're glad to have you, and I look forward to working with you as a citizen as well as a member now of the electoral board. At some point tonight, the Nottoway County Electoral Board will stand here and request that this board approve emergency appropriations to cover the costs of expanding early voting, the early voting period in Nottoway County to include Sundays. I want this board to know that while I encourage this board to come here and properly appropriate the funds, because it's not in our budget, I also voted no to Sunday voting for several reasons. And I'm talking to you now as a citizen, and when the issue's taken up later, I will stand here and do my duty and ask you for the funds. First, this grant is a reimbursement grant, so we have to have the money for it first, and that's why we're here. It is first come, first serve. It is not guaranteed we will be paid back. Fairfax County, who had extremely long lines in the last major election, made the front page of the Washington Post, has already applied for this grant. They have a population over 1 million people. This main purpose of this grant is to expand early voting, whether by adding new jurisdictions like polling places, and then it says it may or may not include Sunday voting. So we may not get it. It's right there on the grant. Voters in this county already have 45 days to vote early, in person, by mail, or by drop box. There's one state in the union that has more time than that, and that's Pennsylvania. It's 3 hours away. As our statistics show, not many people do come during that 45-day period. So few, in fact, that during our last 45-day voting period in the primary election in June this year, only 23 people even came in the entire 45 days. Not 23 a day, not 23 on Saturday. 23 people in 45 days came into Blackstone to vote early. And in our registrar's office, 60 people came in a 45-day period. It's a half a day for one location. It's a half a voter per day in one location and barely over one voter per day in the other. We are about to conduct a race for governor. During our last election for governor in 2017, only 161 voters voted early in person. And I believe they had 30 days to do so. 41 of those people already worked at the polling place. So 120 people came in to vote early during the last gubernatorial election in 2017. Sunday voting would be a waste of taxpayer dollars, and normally this board must approve money for elections. But in this case, it must only approve what the law requires, not what is optional. And Sunday voting is not optional. Is optional to each locality. The law requires Monday through Friday between certain times and 2 Saturdays. The estimated cost range about $43,000 to successfully conduct voting 7 days a week. The board voted to have these Sundays in October. Well, Saturdays are open in October as well, and that would force our registrar and her assistant, because they voted for 2 locations, to work almost 28 days in a row without a day off. She will not have the tools that she needs to successfully run this event for that long, and would need a day off. So she would need another full-time staff member that can be vetted, hired, trained, and access the state system within that time frame. Adding the 2 days has caused an extreme decline in employee morale. From the employees in the registrar's office to the officers of election, down to our machine technicians, who have flat out wrote in letters or attended a meeting with over a quarter of our staff yesterday saying that they refuse to work or does not approve working on Sundays. Many of them refusing to work at all. Does the registrar have the time to create a new position, advertise it, interview, hire, train, and vet new employees, both officers of election and a full-time assistant, and that full-time assistant pass all required background checks to access state computer systems before early voting starts September 17th? Can she do it before October?
Mr. Page, your time is up.
Can I just, I'm almost
Thank
done.
you.
2 seconds, if you don't mind. If she cannot, her staff would have to work 30 days in a row.
Mr. Page, your time is up.
All right, I was in conclusion.
We'll now hear from
Thank you.
Mr. Kyle Scott. Okay.
Hello,
How you
Hello.
doing?
How you doing?
my name's Tyler Scott, and I live in Blackstone. And bear with me, I'm not the best public speaker, so y'all can laugh if I stutter or anything. Well, I'm an election officer, and I'm against Sunday voting. And I do disagree with Mr. Cruz. I think this is politically motivated because it doesn't make any sense. Why would we be voting on Sunday? We already have 45 days. We don't have enough election officers. It's very hard to get people to be election officers. Last year at the police department, I'm not complaining, but I did work from 5 a.m. to 8 p.m. It's really hard to get people to work elections. The reason I think this is politically motivated, I think it's going on across the country and all communities. I am a Republican. I think it's being done to overwhelm registrars and their staffs and the election officials, because then people won't want to work these long days. They won't want to volunteer. And unfortunately, when people are stretched too thinly, they make mistakes and things fall through the cracks. There's no reason for us to have this extra voting. I'm asking you not to fund it. Another thing I'd like to say is I have been to a few election board meetings, and I was a little taken aback at the timeline because I heard that we had tabled Sunday voting till February, and then I just happened to hear from a friend that they were having a workshop where the public couldn't speak. There were only 6 to 8 people there. I just happened to wander in. I find it kind of strange that the Democratic candidate for House of Delegates was sitting there. And they put it on the agenda again to vote on Sunday voting. And by the way, the registrar was out with a family emergency. And I thought, well, I just thought they decided on this. And then we had a big meeting last night where no one wanted to really discuss the budget and the fact that it's a reimbursable grant. So please think of the election officers and the staff. We don't have enough help. I am trying to get officers. I can't get them. And I just don't think it's fair to the staff. Everybody needs a day off, particularly if this may be politically motivated. On a final note, I moved here from Richmond 3 years ago, and I love the South Side, as does my husband. But I've noticed a change as I volunteer in politics, and it's gotten kind of ugly and hateful and some disrespect. And from my heart, I want to say to everybody, I think we can all do a better job of working together to not only better our community for us, but for our families. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Hawkins.
Good evening,
Good evening.
Good evening.
Mr. Chairman, fellow board members, Nottoway employees, fellow Nottoway citizens. A request has been submitted to the Board of Supervisors to fund Sunday voting in Nottoway County. I would encourage you to vote no on it. First, there's no need for Sunday voting. As it currently stands, early voting starts 45 days before Election Day. And there are 31 early voting days scheduled, plus Election Day, so that's a total of 32 days to vote in the upcoming election cycle, in addition to absentee voting. Please think about that. People have a month and a half period of time to vote in a total of 32 days to do it in, plus absentee voting. It hasn't been that long ago, there was only one election day plus absentee voting, and people who wanted to vote got it done in those days. Secondly, this request is coming from a board that has a credibility issue with the very citizens it is supposed to serve. That's because of a number of events that have taken place since last fall's election. These include, but are not limited to, the police having to be called to a polling place on Election Day due to the actions of one of the board members. A huge controversy that arose between two former board members over the way a letter was presented and signed. An illegal electoral board meeting, a high turnover rate among board members, and last but not least, a scathing letter of reprimand from the State Board of Elections concerning the board's actions. And if that wasn't enough already, the board's further tarnished its credibility by its actions involving Sunday voting. At the August 3rd meeting, the board voted to table Sunday voting until February 2022, and that was also reported in the Courier Record. So the citizens who attended that meeting, and also the ones who read the article in the paper, were under the impression that the board would indeed do what it voted to do and revisit the subject of Sunday voting in February. However, at the August 19th work session, the board did a 180 on what they had voted to do on just a little over 2 weeks earlier and indicated it wanted to proceed with Sunday voting. That is an action that doesn't instill much confidence with the voters in the ability of the board to execute its duties properly. A special meeting was held last night at the registrar's office to discuss Sunday voting, and it was acknowledged that public comment was invited and appreciated, but unfortunately it seemed to be ignored. I'd estimate that somewhere around 20 people spoke, and probably 70 to 75% spoke against Sunday voting. Also, there were 6 letters and 1 text read concerning Sunday voting, and the percentages for and against and no's were about the same. A number of poll workers spoke and indicated they did not want Sunday voting and would not work on Sunday. However, after all of this, the board voted to move ahead with Sunday voting, despite the overwhelming sentiment against it and a lot of issues that came up with expenses and funding. A lot of people left that meeting with the feeling public comment doesn't matter at all. There are estimates that Sunday voting will cost extra thousands of dollars. It was also a great concern to hear a board member say something along the lines of, regardless of the cost, if one additional person voted, it will have been beneficial. Members of our boards of our county are supposed to be good stewards of the taxpayers' money, and this shows a huge lack of regard for how mine and your tax dollars are spent. It may be mentioned there's state grant money available, but it is my understanding it's not guaranteed. Even if it were guaranteed, that is still our tax dollars that are being spent unwisely. So, if the board were to approve the expenditure with the expectation it was going to be reimbursed, the county could get left holding the bags. With all the expense the county has incurred with COVID and the ice storm 6 months ago, there are a lot more important things to allocate precious tax dollars to instead of funding something that is unnecessary. Last but not least, Sunday is traditionally a day of worship and a holy day. Let's keep it that way and not vote on Sunday. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Lopez. I'm having a hard time with this writing, but Mr. Caldwell,
Sharon.
Mrs.
Ms. Caldwell.
Mrs. Caldwell.
Hello.
Hello.
I was one of the, 15 last night that poll workers that refused to work on Sunday. This is my 18th year, and I can tell you all, I've worked in the office, I've worked elections, I've worked the early voting. We do not need Sunday voting. The last election, one day I worked in Burkeville for 3 full days, and one person came to vote in those 3 days. We don't have lines, we don't have people waiting, we do not need it. And I've done it for 18 years and haven't seen one time where we needed to add on extra days for voting. We don't need it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Rash.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman.
Good
Members of the
afternoon.
board.
Good
Good
evening.
evening.
I attended my first and possibly last electoral board meeting last night. I do want to say that there were some very passionate pleas made on both sides. I agreed with largely 99% of what everybody said on both sides. Nobody's mind was changed on Sunday voting last night. The issue comes down to funding, whether you can work out all of the details in time to get this grant funded, if you can set aside the monies. But I would urge this board that any monies you put forth to into the registrar's budget for Sunday voting, please include some for some Robert's Rules of Order, some training, and more especially legal counsel, because I think it will be cheaper to hire legal counsel now than to fight in federal court later on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rash. Anna Marie Collins.
Good evening.
My name is Anne Marie Collins. I'm from Wilson's. I vote in Blackstone, and on this go-around, I was number 13 for early voting. I agree with everyone here that is against spending money on voting on Sunday. I think we could use our funds for other things than that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mrs. Allen. Saber Allen.
Thank you for allowing me to come speak today and putting it on the agenda. Dear members of the board, I come to you tonight not as the chair of the electoral board, but as a voting citizen, understanding the importance of expanding voting opportunities for all. I have seen the impact of expanding one's ability to exercise their rights. Even on this one subject, we have provided numerous opportunities for people to speak and express their sentiments. Progress is change. As a county, we must do the things and make the changes to increase voting for all. If 41 people only came out last year, what are we doing wrong? What do we need to do better? Is this an emergency? Yes. Constitutional rights are always an emergency, and it should be so in Nottoway County. What I asked the board to do is to fund Sunday voting for several reasons. For anybody that's lived in Nottoway County for 1 year knows that Nottoway County is very rural. We don't have public transportation. It's hard to get to the things that we need to get to. Even if you go to the doctor, you have to wait because it's only one doctor. We need more opportunities for everything, and it starts with voting. Everything we need begins with voting. Second reason, we are in the middle of the second wave of a pandemic. We need the ability to spread out every single vote. Nottoway County is in the news for more than, I think it was 41% of Nottoway County only being vaccinated. So that leaves a large part of us that's unvaccinated. Yeah, as a citizen, I want everyone to have the ability to vote, not just the people who have the transportation to get to the meetings, to speak at these meetings, not just the people who have the night off from work that can come to the meeting. See, what we're hearing from today are people with resources. And what the electoral board is trying to do is provide a vote for people who don't have the same resources as the same people who be here to come to every meeting and speak on the same thing. It's the same people, maybe 2 or 3 new people that come out. But you know why those 2 or 3 people come out? It's because we provide them an extra opportunity to speak. And that's what we're trying to do in Nottoway County. As a citizen, I want to provide an extra opportunity for those 2 or 3 people to speak. And if you're an election officer, I praise you, and I thank you for for spending those 15 hours in that boardroom, in that voting center, because I feel like you do it because you want your county citizens to exercise their right to vote. I don't think you do it for entertainment purposes. We know this is a duty that we hold true to ourselves, and we're proud about the accomplishments. So I ask the board to give the funding in this reimbursement grant to expand Sunday voting. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Allen. Mrs. Stewart, Ms. Angela Stewart, our registrar.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
It's nice to meet you as our new county administrator.
Thank you, ma'am.
I actually know the general registrar over in Greensville County that raves about you. And she's a very nice person.
She is.
Let me start by saying I've stood before you before for the voters of Nottoway County. I was not asked to do so by the electoral board. I was not asked to do so by the Democratic Party chairman nor a Republican Party chairman. It came before you when we moved out to Burkeville for my voters to open a satellite location in Blackstone, which we did, and you approved it for my voters. And we work very diligently at both locations. And it's a lot more responsibility than running one office. That Amelia only has one office, not 2. Excuse me, I've got winded. They worked them 2 extra Saturdays because of Amelia Day and not having a satellite location like I have. In fact, if you look at Arlington County, they got 238 643 voters. They're voting one Sunday for 4 hours at one location. My office is being asked for me not to take vacation, my full-time Zach not to take vacation. I just lost 4 weeks vacation this year. You can look it up, Katie. I have 457 hours of comp time that I've not been able to take. When you accept that grant, you're not accepting it just for this election. It's every election. It doesn't go bye-bye. The money goes bye-bye, but not the early voting. It's every election. We can have 3 elections a year counted. I cannot leave during that 45 days to go anywhere, do anything, or visit with my family. Times 3. We do have in place Sunday voting. I voted many people on Sunday. They had an emergency. They had a death in the family. They were going in the hospital. They voted. We have never had a citizen in Nottoway County denied their right to vote. I have went to nursing homes. I have went to blind people's homes. All they have to do is call the office. We have procedures in place for that. I don't know when Mr. Cruz started working at my office. It must be invisible. I actually do have 2 other staff members besides myself that can get on Veris. They are part-time. Katie, if you look at my payroll sheet, you'll see their names listed. It's Miss Etta B. Neal and Mr. Sonny Abbott that do cover in case of emergency. But I cannot afford, I don't have the money to pay them the time that would be required for Sunday voting. I cannot ask my staff to work 40 days straight without a day off, 3 times a year. Can't do it. We're gonna have to have that other full-time person to rotate, so my staff can take their much entitled vacations, like all of everyone else in this room's entitled to theirs. Not against Sunday voting, and I thought that it had been tabled till the budget cycle came up. I'm fine with that, as long as I have the staffing and time to train them. People don't understand, when you hire officers of election, we now have to certify to the state that they can run the new equipment. E-poll tablets we're just introducing, our voting equipment. You can't just say, hey, come on in and let's do this. No, we've had fraud-free elections, error-free elections for 29 years with best practices set in place. Here are the localities, and you'll see all the no's and yes. There is no other locality but one working 2 Sundays. And they're all on here now. And all of them know for counties that are not.
Stewart,
Yes.
check your time.
And my time's up.
Not quite.
And I'm just requesting that you be fair with us. No other office in this facility works 45 days without a day off. Y'all agree with that?
Okay. Time's up.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Stewart. Mrs. Bennell.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I was sitting here and it hit me, I've lived here for 22 years and I think this is my first time at the Board of Supervisors meeting.
Welcome.
It's enjoyable so far.
You'll come back.
So I'm coming forward to share that I am not in favor of Sunday voting. I shared my reasons why at the Board of Elections meeting last night, and I'm asking you to not approve the request to extend voting to Sundays for a few reasons. One of which is there are 45 days to vote. There are different avenues by which to vote, including on Election Day, in person across 45 days, absentee, which is what we all used to do when we couldn't make it to the polls, by mail, and of course we have these extended times. There are ample opportunities to vote that decrease the need for Sunday voting. Last June, Mr. Page shared some numbers, and we saw clearly that the number of Sunday voters was Saturday and Sunday voters was an insubstantial number when you look at that analysis. Sunday voting requires poll workers. We've heard that discussion throughout the evening, but it doesn't hurt to share it again. There are not enough poll workers currently, and the need for extended commitment from the ones who currently serve the county is unfair and disrespectful to them to further increase the expectation for a minimal turnout on a day that is not a requirement by the state of Virginia when there are ample opportunities to vote at other times. At last night's Board of Elections meeting, there were numerous election officers. I believe Mr. Page said it was 1/4 at least of the amount of the number that we have total, who publicly stated they opposed the Sunday vote and who further publicly stated they would not work that day. So in making a decision such as this, it is my hope that the Board of Supervisors, pardon me, I can't read my handwriting.
That's all right.
In making a decision such as this, it is my hope that the Board of Elections would have taken into consideration the wishes of their own election officers. However, they opted, after a spirited debate, to move forward, which is why we are here. I am hopeful that our Board of Supervisors will take into the consideration of the express wishes of the election officers and the majority of citizens who spoke last night, and not make a decision which would add and create an unnecessary and an increased burden this year. And beyond, I think most people don't realize that, it creates a burden beyond this election year that enforces Sunday voting, which is, again, an increased expense, an increased expectation for a lower voter turnout. It is an unrealistic expectation to be made on our registrar and her staff, and I hope that you would take that into consideration. I'd like to thank you for your time, and I'd like to welcome our new supervisor in Ottaway County. Thank you so much for being here with us.
County
I
Administrator.
think that was a promotion.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Hawks, we'll end with you.
Vaughn, and members of the Board of Supervisors.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I had the opportunity to attend a meeting last night, and I found it very embarrassing because there were people shouting about Christianity and all that kind of stuff, and trying to say that people shouldn't have the right to vote on Sundays and that type of thing. But I hear people say they've been here 26 years, 15 and 5, and they're from Richmond and Petersburg. Well, I've been here a long time. I've been here when people couldn't have the right to vote. I've been here seeing old people crying on their knees because they didn't have the right to vote. I have seen people denied the privilege to even get fair employment in this county. And I thought that Nottaway was moving ahead, was moving on up. But on the past few times I've been to the Board of Elections and some other places, I have started to believe that maybe we're sliding backwards. And some people use the term Republicans and Democrats and all that kind of stuff. But basically it's all about racism. That's the way I see it, because I experienced it. I have seen people denied the right to vote because of the poll tax. I have seen people denied the right to vote because they could not understand what was written. And even the person who administered the little test couldn't read it also. So I was a little boy observing the situation. Now, I am for Sunday voting. We should give every individual in this United States, in this Nottaway County, the right to vote. Now you look at it, we got people coming from Afghanistan just to be free, just to get the right to vote. We don't need that kind of communistic type approach in this county, whereas only a certain group of people can voice their opinion and everybody else tuck their tails and run. We need to stand up for what's right. We should allow Sunday voting, just like what was said earlier. People don't have the visibilities and opportunities to travel to different polls. They need the opportunity, even though they might not be coming as grossly as some people stated. I mean, this is a county where people have been denied the right to vote for years. So they are scared. They are hesitant. And when they read about stuff in the newspaper that there are a bunch of people up here saying they couldn't vote, they don't want them to vote on Sundays, that reinforces that negativity about the county. I thought we were moving on up, right, Mr. Vaughn? We're moving on up. But we're sliding on backwards. We're sliding backwards. We can't have this kind of thing keep going on. All this chaos in the election on the Board of Supervisors, Board of Election meetings and stuff like that. People jumping up in people's faces just because they don't agree. Now, we don't live in Arizona, and we don't live in Texas, and we don't live in Florida. And if you want to go that way, move on back. Go back to Florida, because this is the Nottaway County, and everyone should have the right to vote. And the Board of Supervisors should fund the Board of Elections effectively and efficiently so everyone will have the right to vote, so all the citizens in this county will feel that they have a right to live comfortably in this county. That's the only way to go. Thank you.
Thank you.
We are now closing the delegation from the public. We had 12 people to speak tonight, and our board listened very carefully, and thank you all for listening very carefully. We'll now have the public hearing. Ms. Homer, will you speak on that, please?
So the school system is in receipt of a new grant award for the fiscal year 22 budget totaling $765,033.62, titled Addressing Unfinished Learning. This is a public hearing.
We got to open the public hearing.
Is there anyone here to speak for? Is there anyone here to speak against? Is there anyone here to speak for?
I can't hear you, Mr. Vaughn.
You cannot? Is there anyone here to speak against? Can you hear that?
I didn't hear what you said in the very beginning, so I don't know what we're speaking against.
Speak for. Can you give a little bit more detail?
We'll have a time with this.
Steve, I bet you if I was a piece of candy, he'd get it open.
Can't do the microphone. I'm having the time with this thing. That's number one. Do you all want to, we need to vote on that.
You got to
Close
close
the
the
public.
public.
Close the public.
After I close the public hearing, I'll get you to vote on that. We have another special exception.
We need to do the first one first.
Let me do the first one. The public hearing is now closed. Do I hear anything from the board members concerning this budget adjustment?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve.
I second.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded that we approve this budget request, budget adjustment. Those in favor, let it be known by the usual sign.
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it. Now, the second in the public hearing, we have a request from Mr. York. Will you read that one, please?
Mr. Anzavino is going to present.
Oh, okay.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Presenting to you this evening a special exception permit from Mr. William York. This was heard before the Planning Commission at public hearing on August 17th of this year. This special exception asks for the addition of one more mobile home to an existing mobile home park that was approved in 1980 by the Board of Supervisors and subsequently added on to. Under the county zoning ordinance, there are 6 mobile homes allowed in any mobile home park. This, if you approve this additional mobile home this evening, it would take the count up to to 5. The existing use and surrounding zoning of the property is rural residential, and there are a number of farm buildings, there's open space, there's fields, as well as the existing 4 mobile homes and a park, which a children's play park, which was built as part of the original mobile home park. In conjunction with the comprehensive plan views this area, the 2016 comprehensive plan views this area as an area for rural residential development, and this does meet the density requirements of the comprehensive plan. The mobile home would be served by an individual well and septic approved by the State Department of Health. and there are minimal traffic impacts which will occur with this. All of this information is included along with the zoning application behind the staff report in the board package and is included on pages 9 through 15. The Planning Commission at their August 17th meeting unanimously recommended approval of the special exception permit for the mobile home park expansion with the recommended conditions as follows. Special exception is granted for a mobile home park use expansion for William York on Nottoway County Tax Map 43-4-4. William York shall obtain appropriate permits from the Virginia Department of Health prior to filing an application for building and zoning permits. A copy of a scale drawing shall be submitted showing all lot lines and setbacks of the proposed mobile home from Wilburn Road and adjoining properties. Special exception shall become null and void if the mobile home park use is abandoned for a period of 24 consecutive months, and the special exception may be revoked by Nottoway County or by its designated agent for failure by the applicant to comply with any of the listed conditions. We have included 3 options for the board's consideration: a motion for approval, motion for amendment, motion for denial for your consideration. Mr. York is here. He may want to offer some comments on the application, and then you may want to open the public hearing for public comment, if any. There was none at the Planning Commission level.
Is there anyone here to speak for? Right on.
Yes, Board of Supervisors. I'm William York. I'm requesting this usage permit to add one mobile home. I've got 30-plus acres there. We don't use it for anything else. It's all family that live in there. And this mobile home is especially for my daughter's husband's uncle, who's currently living with his children in Dinwiddie County. So we'll also get a taxpayer in all those counties.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. York.
Anyone to speak against? Is there anyone to speak against? The public hearing is closed on that. I need some action from the board now.
Mr. Chairman, after reviewing the Planning Commission's recommendation and the applicant's submission for a special exception permit filed under Section 4-7-3-2 of the Nottoway County Zoning Ordinance on June 17, 2021, and after conducting a public hearing, I move to approve the special exception permit, an expansion of an existing mobile home park by 1 unit for William York, located off Wilburn Road in Bellefonte District, as described in the previously filed special exception permit application, incorporating the Planning Commission's recommendations.
I'll second, Mr. Chair.
Thank you for voting for me too, but he lives in my district. It's been moved that we approve. It's been moved and seconded. Question. Those in favor, let it be known by the usual sign.
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it. We have another special exception.
Mr. Chairman, your second special exception permit hearing this evening is from Mr. Kenneth Moorfield and Joanne Moorfield, trading as 460 Natural Resources. The special exception is to allow the addition of light commercial sales to a property which previously was granted for a special exception for a sawmill. The property is located on parcel 42-135 of the county tax maps and is in a conservation C1 district, and a light commercial sales use is allowed within the zoning ordinance. This is a property which the board has seen in the past. It was in 2019, it was approved for a sawmill, and that sawmill did not materialize because of the market, a declining market, and a loss of sales to China. The site was partially developed, and it has a DEQ approved stormwater management pond, and it was partially cleared. The owner, Blake Lewis, trading as 460 Resources, not 460 Natural Resources, cleared the property and also completed the VDOT-approved entrance to the property. Mr. Moorfield was a partner with Mr. Lewis, but Mr. Lewis subsequently decided to sell the property. Mr. Moorfield acquired it. At the time of the public hearing before the board and before the Planning Commission, they assumed that light retail sales or light commercial use was also a permitted use under the sawmill designation, which was originally granted. Matter of fact, the Commissioner of the Revenue granted a business license to the property, believing that as well. The property was identified by county staff as some changes were occurring to it. Had a conversation with Mr. Moorfield that the zoning needed to be brought up to an appropriate level, and he's been more than cooperative in the process of working with us to have the property properly zoned and with the conditions that are assigned in the application. The purpose of the property and the light commercial use is for the display of portable buildings, which are not sold they're sold at the site, but not sold from the site. And by that, I don't mean that buildings will not be coming and going on that site. The Moorfields are serving as brokers for the buildings. In addition, they would like to add some light sales of mulch, sand, gravel for homeowners, not for large consumers, not for large commercial users, but for pickup loads, because it's very hard to find that in Nottoway County, and many other counties too, as you probably well know. They will add a small office building. There will be a porta-john. There will be no septic on site. There is a well that has been approved by the health department, which is in site, and there'll be probably with the underlying zoning approval for the sawmill, that sawmill may eventually be reactivated, but there is not a great deal of large, heavy traffic expected on that at that entrance. It would be limited to probably tandem trucks, dual axle trucks, and not heavy tractor trailers. Although there will be some tractor trailers entering and exiting the property on occasion to deposit mulch, sand, and gravel. The existing use, this is all in a C1 conservation district. There are a couple of houses within eyeshot, and the main line of the Norfolk Western Railroad borders the property. Comprehensive plan recommends this portion of the county for conservation-based uses, and the request complies with the county's comprehensive plan for density recommendations. There are expected to be minor traffic impacts, but I would note that there is a VDOT-approved entrance already installed, and VDOT has indicated that the entrance remains acceptable. Consequently, the Planning Commission, after review at their August 17th meeting, unanimously recommended approval for the special use with 4 conditions, as listed in your staff report. The special exception is granted for light commercial uses as indicated in the applicant's special exception application and site plan filed by H. Kenneth and Joanne Moorfield, trading as 460 Natural Resources and identified as Nottoway County Tax Map number 42-135. Site plan submitted, which is attached and part of your application package, shall be substantially complied with, and additions of lighting and other physical improvements not outlined in the application and site plan must be approved by the zoning administrator. The third condition, the special exception shall become null and void if the light commercial and sawmill use is abandoned for a period of 24 consecutive months. And the final condition, the special exception may be revoked by Nottoway County or by its designated agent for failure by the applicant to comply with any of the listed conditions. With that, we have provided 3 motions, one for approval, one for denial, one for amending the recommendation, and would be happy to answer any questions that you might have. Mr. and Mrs. Moorfield are here this evening, may also wish to comment, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Anyone here to speak for the Moorfields? Do you wish to?
Yes, Board, I appreciate you all giving your time to our little project, and I really appreciate more than anything how you all opened your meeting here this evening. Country would be in a fair bit better shape if we all did that with a prayer and going to the Lord like you all did. I appreciate that more than anything. But just to kind of fill in a little bit on the project that we're attempting there, is that the sawmill will come about tomorrow by before dark. I suppose it will be on site. It's a little band sawmill, like we previously talked about when this thing was first, passed, first go around. But that real idea about the mulch and the gravel and stuff is that there's so many people, they go to Luckstone, they come to town with their little pickup truck or trailer, and they can't get that thing loaded because the trailer or the truck is too small for their big equipment to load. Conversation with Luckstone today, they've been hoping somebody would come along like us to accommodate people that can't go and get that little bit of gravel or that little bit of mulch that we'll be offering. We have one place at our house, we've been waiting to get 2 buckets of gravel for 10 years. Well, I filled those 2 holes up last week. And there's a whole lot of people like that. They don't need a truckload, they just need a little bit. So I guess the punchline for our little business there would be a lot or a little. You can get your truckload if you want it, or you can just get your pockets full, whichever way you decide to do that. So I guess with that, if you have any questions that you would like to ask me to clear up whatever you might have, I'll do so.
Thank you, sir. Anyone to speak against? Anyone to speak against? Okay. It's closed. Special exception is closed. Please hear from the board now. Mr. Bowen.
Mr. Chairman, I was at the Planning Commission, and I thank you for coming tonight as well. After reviewing the Planning Commission's recommendations and the applicant's submission for the special exception permit filed under Section 22426 of Nottoway County zoning ordinance, and after conducting a public hearing on August 26, 2021, I move to approve the special exception allowing the light commercial uses of C1 Conservation District for H. Kenneth and Joanne Moorfield, trading as 460 Natural Resources, located in the intersection of U.S. Business 460 and Virginia Secondary 699, which is called Simmons Lane, in the Blending District as described in the previously filed special exception permit application, incorporating the Planning Commission's recommendation. Mr. Chairman, that's my motion on the floor.
I will second that.
Okay. It's been moved and second that we approve the recommendation of the special exception permit. Question. Those in favor, let it be known by the usual sign.
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it.
All right. It'd be nice to get a bucket full of rocks.
Okay, we have department. Is Mrs. Bryan here?
I have not seen her,
No,
sir.
I haven't seen her.
She's not able to make it this evening.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
All right, solid waste, I don't see that. The Planning Commission.
I believe Mr. Anzavina placed a copy of the minutes from the last meeting in your board packet.
It's okay.
Mr. Chairman, point of order. We need to approve the minutes. We missed that earlier. I'm sorry.
On our agenda?
Yes, sir.
Okay, okay.
Thank you, John. You're right.
You did.
I'll go back. Let's go back to page 1.
I move to approve the amendments. And there are 2 amendments, with the 2 amendments.
Okay. It's been moved that we approve the minutes. I don't know how I missed that.
We were too excited about recognizing the softball team.
That's
Those
right.
are kids.
Question. Those in favor, let it be known by usual sign.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Okay.
You were at
Building
Building
inspection.
inspection.
Okay, animal control. All of these department reports are in your package. Okay, constitutional officers. Let's I do not see Ms. Brown. Sheriff?
Nothing at this time, sir.
Okay. Mrs. Wyatt, I don't see her.
She was here.
Mrs. Wyatt. Is she here? Okay. Ms. Hudson? And Mrs. Walters, I don't see her tonight.
She was,
Is she?
she stepped out. She was back there.
Okay. Right. Okay, unfinished business. Did you have anything to?
No report, just welcoming our new county administrator. I look forward to working with you.
Look forward to meeting with you. Take care.
Thank you. Okay. Unfinished business.
That'll be Mr. Anzavino.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, we have continued vacancies on the Planning Commission. I would note that in the packet erroneously is a suggestion for an individual to be appointed to the Industrial Development Authority. The board, Ms. Shackleton reminded me this week that the board is voting to hold all IDA appointments till your new Planning Economic Development Director is hired, because that group needs to be rejuvenated and be given some vision to react to, so that they can become more active. So you have one appointment for the Planning Commission. That's Mr. William Gunn.
Okay.
Who is Mr. Gunn?
Is anybody talking? Is that your district?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Mr. Chairman, I move to reappoint Mr. William Gunn to a 4-year term on the Nottaway Planning Commission, effective immediately and ending at midnight on August 16, 2025.
Second.
Sorry. Only the planning. Is he a member of the IDA as well?
No, he's not.
No, just planning.
All right. It's been moved and seconded that we approve of Mr. William Gunn for the Planning Commission. Question. Those in favor, let it be known by the usual sign.
Aye.
Those opposed, the ayes have it. Crossroads.
Mr. Anzavino's going to start it. Crossroads.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. This is concerning Crossroads Community Services Board and the forensics audit that the board approved at your June 22nd meeting. As you know, you were supporting Prince Edward County in their efforts as the fiscal agent to ensure that the new director coming in had a clean record of all the financial transactions and an identification of any difficulties in internal procedures that needed to be rectified as that director assumed the office. On June 22nd, the Crossroads Board voted to proceed with the audit. This is the Crossroads Board proceeded to proceed with the audit as requested by a vote of 6 to 4 to 1. I guess that was an abstention.
That's correct.
Chair Carmelita Escoto proceeded pursuant to the bylaws to appoint an ad hoc forensics audit advisory committee to assist with the selection of a forensics auditor. She appointed Robert Saunders, Jordan Miles, and Ms. Simmons, a member of the Board of Supervisors, to the audit committee to execute the actions that were included in the motion. Mr. Saunders was designated as chairman of the committee. Chair Escoto, along with interim executive director Pam Wallace of the Community Services Board, were appointed to serve as non-voting members. The committee also included legal counsel and advisors who were non-voting, depending on the subjects of discussion and the progression of the audit. The Crossroads Board, at its July 27th meeting, which I had the pleasure of attending, decided to vote 7 to 5 to dissolve that committee after the forensic audit RFPs had already been solicited. At the suggestion, maybe not at the suggestion, but after the executive director of the agency, who was part of the ad hoc committee, presented an RFP for not only forensic auditing services, but also for an annual auditing service, financial auditing services. In review of the RFP, as proposed by Crossroads, there's an inherent conflict between, and you should be aware that there is an inherent conflict between a financial audit and a forensics audit. and there are standards which auditing accounting firms go by very closely. And it's in conflict. Those processes are in conflict with one another, so you couldn't hire one firm to do both audits. That was identified by Prince Edward County, and Prince Edward County reacted as the fiscal agent very aggressively and indicated that they were going to move forward with a forensics audit as the fiscal agent, and that they were going to withhold funds from Crossroads through their contribution, which are already on hold until the forensics audit was completed. So included in your board package is a letter of engagement from the auditor chosen by Prince Edward County, as well as related information. And what Prince Edward County has asked all of the member counties who have asked for a forensics audit, and there are 5. There are only 2 that didn't, Amelia County and Lunenburg County. But there's a $20,000 cost for the forensics audit. They're asking for each of the 5 counties to withhold $4,000 initially for the forensics audit from our contribution to Crossroads, and to notify the state commissioner of behavioral health as well as Crossroads executive director that that action has been taken by the board. I would strongly urge you to consider this and continuing to support Prince Edward County in this effort. And there are 3 motions for your consideration. 1 approving that recommendation, 1 rejecting the recommendation, and 3rd, developing a revised recommendation. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have, but Ms. Simmons, who is here and was at the last Crossroads board meeting as well, may be better able to address the issues than I.
You have any questions?
I don't have any questions. I just got a comment to the board members and to the public. We have a good representative from this county, Helen Simmons, on that Crossroad board, and I know it's a hard board to be on, and some tough decisions. And I just want you to know that I've talked to different board members around our neighboring counties, and she's very well respected from her colleagues, and there are some funding issues, and an audit needs to be done. And I think God who brought it up this evening, but we should be. I think it was Mr. Reynolds. We're supposed to be good stewards of money. We need to find out where that money's going.
I believe.
Any other comments?
I was just going to say, I believe it's over $2 million in question. Is that right?
2.4.
Yeah.
Okay.
Audit.
Chair will now entertain a motion to go with the recommendation of Mr.
I move that the Board of Supervisors of Nottaway County approve participation in funding of the forensic audit for the Crossroads Community Service Board, with funding to support the audit being allocated from the board's approved FY 2022 appropriation to Crossroads.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and second that we appropriate the money for the audit at Crossroads. Question. Those in favor, let it be known by the usual sign.
Aye.
Those opposed, the ayes have it. I believe that's $4,000.
Yes, and I would like to say that the audit has already began. It began on Monday.
Okay.
So.
Thank you for what you do, Helen.
No, you're welcome.
Ms. Simmons, I have to agree with Mr. Bowen. You do a great job on that board.
Thank you.
We'll now have the consideration for the position of the Emergency Management Coordinator. Mr. Custon, will you talk on that?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, please keep in mind it's day 4 for me. And this is a project that, quite frankly, has started by Mr. Anzavino and myself prior to my arrival with the county, trying to pull out some comparative job descriptions for what the board seeks, which is a fairly broad emergency management coordinator position. And even this afternoon, just a couple hours before tonight's meeting, I've received a couple more samples. I'm going to basically sit down with about the 8 or 9 sample totals that we've received so far and start to draft and blend and create that job description for you. But I'm not ready to do that this evening, so I ask if you can carry this over to the September meeting.
Okay. Is that okay with?
Yeah,
That's
fine.
fine.
Absolutely.
Okay, good. Okay, new business. Authorization to advertise delinquent real estate tax.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, again. In your board packet, beginning on page 57 and continuing on until page 97, are a list of delinquent real estate taxes in Nottoway County provided by the treasurer. Traditionally, the treasurer has provided this list to the Board of Supervisors to notify you that these taxes are delinquent and to seek authorization to advertise them, which result in considerable level of collections. The estimated cost for the advertisements to run in the public, in the press, is about $14,500. And so it is a significant expenditure, but those are typically recovered through the sale of the satisfaction of the delinquent taxes as they are paid off. So wanted to seek the board's approval to move forward with those advertisements.
Need a motion to approve the authorization.
You know, Mr. Chairman, I voted against this once before.
I know you did.
I didn't see your name in this, Steve.
I bet you looked for it, too. So, I think the reason why I voted for it because Mr. Anzavino just brought the issue up. It is very costly. However, I think they get their money back, and I'm a true believer. If you live in this country, you got to pay your taxes. So I'm going to go ahead and change the heart a little bit. Go ahead and make the motion that we advertise in the paper.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we approve the authorization to advertise. Question. Those in favor, let it be known by the usual sign.
Aye.
Those opposed, the ayes have it. The town of Crewe, Miss Katie, will you?
I'm here to answer questions, and I can give you a brief synopsis, but I think you've got some information in your board packet, and pretty clear, but I can answer questions if you like.
So the scenario with this, which Ms. Simmons and Ms. Shackleton are aware, is that a lot of, well, most everything that's happened with these funds, we've sought guidance from the Department of Administration, because ultimately, this is the plan that needs it. They didn't speak very favorably of the town of Crewe's request. It's a little bit of a gray area because of the dynamics. They want to expand space that's unused currently, which will in turn accommodate spaces for new employees. So they had questions related to essentially, why now, why, a year later, what are these employees going to be doing after the pandemic is over? Those types of things. Now, you can argue both sides of this, you can see both sides. They have existing space issues, there's no question, you see it in the pictures. If I'm correct, you have an employee that was a grant employee related to COVID, is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. We do have a grant employee that, her current space is in the copy room.
And there's no question that creating office space for that employee is allowable, without question. And there's no question that the existing space could be manipulated with, barriers or walls, or, they want to do touch-free systems, those types of things. They're all allowable. The question is would it be allowable to use the funds to renovate the upstairs space, in essence, to accommodate new employees? And again, you can see both sides of the argument. They don't have room, but these employees will be new. They weren't necessary during the time frame. So, he's here before you all because ultimately it's the government's decision, what's allowable, what's acceptable, taking into consideration the guidance from the treasurer.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask a question?
Right.
What is the deadline for this CARES Act funding. It was extended to the end of this year. And is there still the criteria that the disbursements as well as the completion of the work for which the money is dispersed has to be completed by the end of the year? Is the amount of money being requested, is Cruz allotment sufficient to cover what's being requested?
Well, that's what they want to do. They want to use the remainder.
The remainder.
Of their allocation for the project.
But
And
this,
then I assume anything over the town of Cruz is planning to fund.
but you're saying that the state felt it's a gray area?
U.S. Treasury, yes.
The Treasury, yeah.
Compliance agency, yes.
Well, we've always relied on
them, and I
Yes.
feel like if they're questioning it, because ultimately, if they disallowed it at any point, then the county would be responsible for reimbursing that money.
Right.
Mr. Chairman, Mayor? I would, I'd be in favor of this for one reason, Delta variant. This is not ending. This is spreading again. And I think that, simply put, the town of Crew is expanding its personnel. And as we can see now, there's COVID cases becoming more prevalent in schools. I still fear there may only be a matter of weeks before some restrictions start coming down. So, and we are in a time crunch. I understand a gray area, and I absolutely understand y'all's concerns. If they have a gray area on this, and I understand that's their words, not ours. I understand that's their words, not ours. But to have a gray area when we're talking about the health, safety, and welfare of the citizens, to me, is a little too much for me. But I'd be in favor of moving forward with allowing Crew to do this.
So there were certain expenditures that were clearly allowable as they were directly related to COVID. And could you explain one more time how this upstairs expansion is directly related to COVID?
So just to make clear, I sent you some pictures, but currently the first floor of Town Hall is the only space currently utilized for employees and the public. So we're cramped, the staff is cramped in currently with existing staff. We've got a couple of new budgeted positions that would just exacerbate that space issue even more and pack people in closer together. So what we're trying to do is, if you see in the pictures, another facet of this is we don't have a dedicated conference space for employees or the public. My office is the conference area for the town hall. So when I meet with citizens, the public, our staff, they meet at that little small table we have no dedicated area for conference area. So part of the plan was to probably put that upstairs along with additional office space that will spread out the employees downstairs. Our police department currently is a very small space that currently five total budgeted employees are in that little small space now. We budgeted for another additional police officer position in the current year budget. So that already small space is going to get smaller. We budgeted for a finance director position that we're trying to hire now in the space where the front desk lady sits, our town clerk, the grant employee in the copier room. So when that position, I have nowhere to put that position, and the only place I have to put that position now is in that small space with the town clerk and front office person and the grant employee, which will make that social distancing issue even worse. So we're trying to expand and we don't have any dedicated break space either. You can see in the picture that we have a little microwave area and whatnot. So anyway, we're trying to increase the social distance space downstairs and increase additional offices and conference room area upstairs for both the employees and when we meet with citizens and the public. So that's, and some of these other touch-free systems is an added benefit. So we are trying to social distance for our employees, social distance for the public, create additional office space so we can social distance. And I think personally, obviously, it fits within the guidelines of what the CARES Act is trying to accomplish. But if we were a city or counties such as yourself, we could do that ourselves, but being a town, we have to, ask for reimbursement from the county, so the town didn't want to take on that expense with the chance that the county would not reimburse us for those expenses. That's basically the gist of it.
Are you confident these renovations going to be completed by December 31st?
We're in a time crunch. I sent this into the former deputy administrator back in April, so yes, we're kind of in a time crunch now. We would have to probably bring an architect on board and try to fast track some of this. So yeah, we are in a time crunch now. So.
Katie, what happens if we disperse the money and the renovations aren't complete?
Well, essentially, you're not going to disperse the money to the town ahead of time.
We don't, okay, not during the construction process.
It'll be after it will be completed.
It will become a component of progress to date, as long as there's some level of completion that would be acceptable, to the project itself.
Well, how would you differentiate between their request and then what we're doing for the town of Blackstone, or we agreed to do for the town of Blackstone? But did the Treasury?
I didn't differentiate.
No, but the Treasury did.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you have any idea why?
That the governing body apparently is more important than the behind the scenes. That was just their perception was that the governing body and maintaining their integrity and their operations was different.
Within the chambers.
The council chambers, yes.
One last question. How much money are we talking about?
Yeah, I think I believe we got somewhere between 250 to 300,000 left to the agreement.
Steve, is that what you call an oxymoron? I mean, I could be wrong. I mean,
well, what I'm trying to figure out, so if it's a conference room upstairs, does that building have handicap accessible? It's hard for me to believe you're going to be able to bring that up to code and have handicap accessibility. And does it have an elevator? They don't have an elevator. Oh, we walking on thin ice here, buddy. We might.
but what she did say, it could be paid out up to completion.
But you can put an elevator in if need be. That is an option.
So we're only on.
You could create additional space downstairs if people cannot walk upstairs. If you don't put an elevator in to accommodate a smaller conference room to meet with public that can't be accessible upstairs.
Part of their project, as he's explained, includes the touch-free systems they want to do. All of those things are allowable. Are they? I don't know how much of a part of the entire project they are, but any of those things that are done, obviously, they're allowable expenses. They're going to get reimbursed for that. I can't make this decision. That's the.
But I don't know how you feel. I personally feel that any clearly allowable components of this project we would be okay with, but if the Treasury Department is questioning any aspect of it, I don't know that we...
I agree. Yes. Because we've been very careful with how we've spent the funds, the CARES Act funding, and we've gone by the guidelines because we don't want it to come back on the county and we have to repay that money back.
I know one office upstairs won't fix their problem completely, but there's no question that the office space for this grant employee, because it was COVID related, is allowed. There's no question that is allowable. But
one office space.
That one position isn't going to fix their problem. That one office space upstairs doesn't fix their problem.
But if I understand this correct, guys, we don't prepay the money, and at the end of the year, if we only pay what they've done that's allowable, we won't be on the hook for anything because it would be allowable. If there's any left over, then we would just have to return it or either they extend it. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yes, that's what you're understanding. Again, the problem is the guidelines say that the projects must be complete.
Right.
By the end of the year. So if this entire project is contingent upon one component of it, the entire thing has to be complete.
Do y'all intend to break this up in sections then?
Yeah, this is just, yes sir, this this is just a concept at this time. We would have to bring in an architect.
You don't get it done.
Space needs, analysis. This is just.
That wouldn't be enough
This
time.
is conceptual.
It wouldn't be
and
enough
just looking
time.
at it from staff's point of view of what probable improvements would need to be made. So, I mean, obviously the first part would be bringing an architect in, putting drawings together, doing a space needs study, that kind of thing. So, I mean, more than likely, you know, given the fact that we've got a little concerned about.
Right, that was my next question. How long do you think that would take?
I mean, the architectural part would take. Kick it back. Who's on the hook for them kicking it back? And if the requirement is that the work has to be done first, you know, that creates some issues if we're, you know, just.
County house is it?
Yeah, it wouldn't be enough time.
I've been.
We could get started on architectural plans.
Done a lot of, I mean, I'm just telling you guys, I've been involved in a lot of projects, VCBR, you can name them up there, millions, and and there's no way. I'm telling you, people can't even get materials. I don't know how you get materials.
All right, one other question. One other question. Is crew willing to go on record to go on the hook for this if it doesn't get completed?
I can tell you, money, construction money was not budgeted for the current fiscal year. We didn't include because we had not heard back from the county.
Yeah.
Crew wouldn't be on the hook. I know my name is on that CARES Act. But I was the one that signed it. Yeah.
No question about it.
No.
Regardless, if this is not approved, we're gonna go forward on that as approved in the budget to start architectural planning, but, anything we could save there through use of these funds, obviously is the optimal path.
I don't see.
Yeah, I'm trying to. We want good relationships with our town, but I mean, I think about the town of Burkeville. So, they were jammed up in that one room, and they went to the fire department to have their meeting so they can spread out, and then they went to they had to relocate. I mean, that's what they ended up doing. And I know Mr. Throw, it's a different situation, but they had to get very creative. And they had that at the train station having meetings, and space is, and I know that building is small, and I get that part of it, but we'll be on the hook.
No doubt about it.
I think part of the uncertainty with this project is because it includes the aspect of part of why they're doing it is to accommodate, new employees.
Yeah, makes sense.
Even though, space is an issue, they have space issues that but that's the part of it that is being frowned upon or whatever by.
We need to bring this to a head.
Well, I don't see how we can do it.
I mean, I don't understand. There's a lot of questions. I'm all about maintaining the health, safety, and welfare of the employees. They're citizens too. I mean, I know it's a risk, but everything's a risk nowadays.
We can't put the county on the spot like that, John.
It's not that we don't want them.
Right.
I know that they need the space. I mean, I've been in there. I know the space is needed. It's just where the funds are, this CARES Act money.
Well, if you're looking at the architectural piece of this running for several months, it's kind of a moot discussion anyhow, right?
This is all, almost
The
done
project
all.
wouldn't be, no way it's going to be completed.
I wouldn't think the whole thing would be complete by, you would have to go through another process to, construction company on board, trying to get some initial architectural, if you can't I guess if the CARES Act doesn't allow for prepaying work that would be completed, whatever would be completed at that stage, which would probably be architectural and possibly some construction. So we're doing what we can within a limited time.
Sure. I'm sorry, I don't
I'm
see how
sorry.
we can
We
consider
can't.
it.
Well, we can figure this. In 3 weeks, we have another board meeting. If there's something else they can bring before us, because there's no vote on the floor. It's not been said no. So,
Well, I'm gonna put a vote on the floor and say, no, that we can't do it. We can't. It's not enough time.
Okay, she got a second.
I mean, I don't want,
I'm going to second it to put it back on the floor for discussion. Should the motion be more that we don't want to approve components of this request that may not comply with the Treasury Department's guidelines?
Yes.
May not be completed by the end of the year? I mean, should we be more specific about what?
Well, we can't put the one room is not gonna work. I mean, and that's what we could do, would be the one room. But still, they have to have an architect to come in and draw up the plans even for that one room. And it's not gonna be enough time to do it. But yes, I agree with you.
well, maybe, Ms. Simmons, would you amend your motion to say, I'm just throwing this out there. Let's go back, if the rule says the end of the year, there's no way it's gonna get it done. So if we could have to look to see if the rule does say the end of the year, and it sounds like Katie's pretty sure, and then we can communicate that with the town of Crew.
It is the end of the year.
Okay.
But see,
Then we should probably have to put no motion. He says, I don't think there's a way it's gonna get done.
well, the other thing is, it's not the end of the year. Should we afford them the opportunity to replan and represent?
But John, how are they gonna budget for that? They're gonna say, oh, we're gonna get to 200, are we? You understand what I'm saying? You see, they are
I follow what you're saying. All I'm asking is to be fair to them and ask them to give them an opportunity to replan and represent. That's all.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask a question?
Yes.
Of Ms. Tomer? Ms. Tomer, do we have a definitive list of what the grant agency said is okay, and then what's in the gray area?
Well, the things that I mentioned, the fact that, you know, they didn't.
The touch screens.
They're seeing it as, you know, you didn't need this space when this started.
Mhm.
You know, you didn't need these employees when this started. I guess in their mind, it's, well, can't you wait till the pandemic's over to bring those employees on, so it doesn't exacerbate your spacing problems.
Okay, so then to Ms.
I guess let's not lose sight either of the fact that, you know, this variant is alive and well.
Well, then we need to ask for.
There may very well be a scenario where 2 months from now, this gets extended again.
Right, well, could we?
That's correct. It could be. I've seen it extended a couple of times and altered and added and bells and whistles added on. Mr. Thrower, are there pieces and parts you can do? And just.
See, that's the thing, if you could do the one room.
We need to, you know, because we've been sitting on this for several months now. I just need to know whether I can go hire an architect to start planning space.
I would say.
Steve, did you make a motion?
No, I was just going to make a comment. We could ask for, because of the Delta variance, I mean, John's making a good point, could we ask for an extension?
No, unless there's an overall extension, no. An individual agency, entity, whatever, cannot ask for an extension.
We can ask for a hotel if we want to, but we won't get it. That's what you're saying.
These guidelines are a living, breathing document. They're still changing.
I'm with you. I know. It's been tough watching the rules on that, and I appreciate what you do, Katie.
Okay, it's a motion on the floor.
What's the motion? Can I repeat it?
And Lynn amended my motion, so I will go with the motion that she made.
We'll go with the amendment first.
Can I hear the whole bucket of soup there? I gotta make sure what I'm voting on here.
Okay.
Well, I've said that we basically we can't do it with the time crunch that we have.
I guess it's a motion that we're not able to approve the Town of Crew's request at this time. How about that?
Okay.
Did you say at this time? I'm sorry.
It's been
yeah, that's what she said. That's what she said.
It's been moved and seconded. Question. Those in favor, let it be known by the usual sign.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Aye.
Okay, 4-1.
I knew old John going over that.
The approval of the first step of the long-range financial plan.
Good evening again, Mr. Chairman.
You still here?
At your August 12th work session, you had a presentation from David Rose at Davenport about a broad overview of the county's financial condition. And at the end of the presentation, the board indicated a desire to really move forward with taking the first step in a long-range financial planning process and requested a scope of work to that effect from Davenport. And that was emailed to you yesterday, and also you have hard copies there at your place at the dais. Let me review that with you very quickly. Phase one of the scope includes a deeper review of the county's financial standing, including taking a 5-year look at our cash flow, strategies and weaknesses, strengths and weaknesses, looking at and assessing our reserves and our fund balance, identifying capital needs in the general fund, including schools, modeling the impacts of identified capital needs on the county's debt capacity and debt affordability, and developing a pro forma financial capital planning tool, reviewing the county's identified resources for capital funding in concert with possible financing to identify funding strategies for the board, developing an initial plan of finance for general fund capital needs with potential funding sources, a deeper look at peer comparative analysis, a deeper look at the overview of credit ratings and how the county may stack up if you decided to go to the market, and providing financial policy guidelines, which are sorely lacking. We have none whatsoever in the county at the present time, including fund balance, reserves, and debt levels, then identifying any refinancing or pay down opportunities for existing debt. And that may be limited given the limited amount of debt that the county has, but they still could look at it. They still might be able to find some savings there. Cost for phase one is $20,000 plus 4% of that for overhead expenses. And I would note to you that having been in that type of business as Davenport and competing against them, there are very few firms in the state that provide this type of service. Our firm no longer does. And I did talk to PFM, which is another public financial advisory firm today. I have a friend that works there. We reviewed Davenport's scope of work, and PFM estimated the cost from their perspective would be about $30,000 as opposed to $20,000. And he indicated, the person I spoke to at PFM indicated that this would be a good value for the county because you get a lot of very good information. In addition, in looking at this from the county's procurement standpoint, we can piggyback on Dinwiddie County's current RFP, which they've approved in contract, because they have a cooperative procurement notation and usage in there. And so with that, we have Roland Cooch here and RT, okay, RT, I forgot. But they're here to answer any questions that you have, but I think you know my position as your former interim administrator on this. This is something that the county needs to do. You're going to hear in just a few minutes about another major capital expense, a radio system for the county, somewhere between $3 and $5 million.
All right.
The administration building, estimated a couple of years ago, or maybe about a year ago, at about $20 million. And then an animal control facility, then fleet replacement. So you have a number of things which are, I hate to say, are in the pipeline, which are going to be very expensive. Davenport, or a financial advisor of their Comport, has the ability to help guide you through this process, minimize the impact on the county's taxpayer, as well as on the Board of Supervisors, and minimize the impact as much as possible. So with that, I'll sit down. I'll be happy to answer any questions before I sit down, or Roland or RT would be happy to answer any questions as well.
Okay, we have.
By the way, just in case you're wondering about how Dinwiddie reviewed it, this is their review package. This is the RFP. This is the work plan and the contract. So it's, as you can see, a fairly substantial document. They've gone through it very thoroughly.
Okay, we have two proposals. The first proposal is to accept the scope of services. Either scope of services and a formal comprehensive financial review, one or the other.
Mr. Chairman, after speaking with Mr. Ansavino today, we spoke directly about procurement, and I feel confident the county is going to be following procurement guidelines with this. And after the proposal that, the presentation that Davenport done, I myself am ready to move forward without any questions.
I agree. I think we could, we definitely would benefit from having someone guide us and provide strategic direction for us financially.
So the option, you want one or two?
So, Mr. Chairman, I move to accept Davenport's proposed scope of services in an amount not to exceed $20,000. or $30,000, sorry.
No. He would.
I would say
$20,000.
$21,000.
21.
Base fee plus 4% of the additional cost for reimbursement.
So at this point, may I stop in the middle of a motion to ask a question? Or I'll just proceed. So not to exceed $21,000 plus?
No,
$21,000, all right. Let me start again. I move to accept Davenport's proposed scope of services in an amount not to exceed $21,000 for a complete, informal, comprehensive financial review that will serve as the basis for a long-range planning, financial policies, and recommendations on best practices given the county's needs.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we accept Davenport's proposed scope of services for an amount not to exceed $21,000. Question. Those in favor, let it be known by the usual sign.
Aye.
Those opposed, the ayes have it. Okay. Tuition reimbursement.
Mr. Chairman, as the board knows, you're fairly thin on policy, written and approved policy. And one of the things that we've encountered with staff is, as I've said many times, that we all recognize that the county has a very hard-working, talented staff, and, which has supported the board as well as the county citizens in time of need. And they've not had any significant support and opportunities to grow their skills and to expand their horizons from an educational and training standpoint. Consequently, what we have proposed is a tuition reimbursement policy, and this follows on the heels of almost losing an employee who wished to move to another agency, which had an opportunity to be reimbursed for tuition. And one of the carrots I offered in keeping that person on staff was if the board approved it, participation in this program. Now, we've looked at a number of different programs. This program is modeled after another similarly sized county's program. And we've done some research on online training and education. We surveyed Longwood, we surveyed Old Dominion, we surveyed Liberty, and we also surveyed Strayer as far as their per hour credit costs. And none of them would exceed, for a 4-hour credit, $1,400 per semester. So to bolster the employees in the organization that have shown an interest in training, we would suggest that this policy be approved. The county has 2 employees who currently have shown an interest in the program. Both employees would want to take the classes online. They would probably be at a level of about 3 credit hours for the coming semester, not the fall semester, but the winter semester. And we would suggest that the board approve 2 enrollments at a cost not to exceed $3,000 in the investment of the first year program. I would note, as you look through this policy, that we do have a number of different safeguards for the county. Number one, we've identified what types of courses may be taken and how they must be job related. We've discussed that the request must be made and approval granted prior to course registration. employee must have 12 months of service. There will be a maximum of $1,400 per employee per semester until budgeted funds are exhausted. And you'll only reimburse one course per semester. You don't want to take the employee away from their family or away from their job to get an education, although an education is important. This will be viewed as taxable income according to Internal Revenue Service guidelines. And counties must maintain full-time employment status with the county for 12 months after successful completion of the course. And if they leave any time within that 12 months, we have a clawback provision which is prorated based upon the number of months that they would leave. So, for example, if the county contributed $1,400 for a course, they left after 6 months, the county would be due 7 months that would be extracted from their last pay. We are not paying for any books or any additional items at this time. This is a program which is in its infancy. And it is required that the employee receive a C in an undergraduate course or better, or a B in a graduate course or better. And I know from graduate school it's easy to get B's or better. I mean, I got them. So with that, you have the policy. We've offered a suggestion that it be approved. We've offered you some motions to that effect, and I'd be happy to answer any questions about the proposed policy.
Mr. Chairman, I do have one question. The first proposed motion, Mr. Anzavino, that would include the not to exceed $3,000, is that correct?
Yes, sir. It includes everything that we've discussed in the
Okay, okay.
policy.
Well, Mr. Chairman, we've moved forward with our employees. Ain't no need in backing up now.
That's right.
Well,
Can I get a second?
no, I got a question, Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind.
Hey,
And I hear what Mr. Anzavino has mentioned about some safeguards, but you know, it's a good policy. I like it. I don't have a problem with it. But how are you going to, and this is not going to be Mr. Anzavino's responsibility, it's going to be Mr. Costin. How are we going to track that person, like I took a class in February and then who's going to track 12 months later, boom. See, you see what I'm saying? How do you track that?
Mr. Bowen, the reimbursement doesn't come until they first of all, they have to have approval to enter the class and to be reimbursed. They have to provide information to the Human Resources Coordinator that they have taken the class and that they received a
Right, but I'm saying they're supposed to work for us for 12 months after, right?
Right.
Okay, that's the part I want to see how you're going to track it. In other words, so they get disgruntled in April and they say, well, I'm leaving.
Okay.
So we got somebody that's going to say, okay, when does she take the class of he? And we're going to hold that money back from the paycheck?
You pay back,
That's
yeah.
going to be part of
Yeah,
their
yeah,
All right.
that's what happens.
It's hard to do. I mean, it's hard to track it. I'm telling you, I've seen nurses do it. Like, they get a bonus, and they get the bonus in April, and next thing you know, they're gone. They got the keys, and the money's gone. I'm glad it's in there. I like it. The tracking.
Give me a second, Bowen.
I'll give you 5-10 minutes.
Mr. Bowen, just recognize the county workforce that this covers. Okay, you've got at best that are covered by this policy. These are board-covered employees.
Right.
Maybe 15 full-time employees.
I see what you're saying. It's not that big of a pot of
not
people.
big.
I'm with you. I'm with you, Mr.
Everybody
Van
knows
Dyke.
everybody.
Okay.
And if the policy's in place and the employee signs that
Yeah,
they're in the
I'm with you.
program, then they're acquiescing to the drawdown of the funds if they leave early.
Okay, Mr. Bowen, you did give me a second, didn't you?
No, sir, I was asking a question, Mr. I didn't make the
I
motion.
haven't gotten that far yet. I need a
Yes,
second.
yes,
so
sir.
I can ask you
Mr.
a
Chairman,
question.
you have a second. I'm sorry.
I do have a.
Oh, that's second.
That's second.
That's second.
Yeah, that's it's been moved and seconded.
No. No.
Oh, I thought he was asking, will you give me a second, like to speak or something?
Yeah,
That's
I
what we
thought-
thought you were talking about.
I thought
I didn't
that's
make
what you
it.
meant,
I
too.
will read the motion here, Mr. Chairman. I move that the proposed tuition reimbursement policy be approved as proposed with an effective date of September 1st, 2021.
A second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we approve, we approve the tuition reimbursement policy. Question, Mr. Bowen?
This is a comment. I think it's a great policy, and I think it's going to help with retention. Mr. Anzavino, and I know y'all worked hard on that policy.
Those in favor, let it be known by the usual sign.
Aye.
Those opposed, the ayes have it. Cell phone.
Okay, we've also developed for the board's consideration a cell phone policy. Now, explaining what you have on the ground now is just a mishmash of who's got a cell phone and who pays for it. And in some cases, the employees using their personal cell phone for county business not being reimbursed at all. The market has gone such that it used to be that everybody wanted a publicly issued cell phone, but it's gone away from that because of the need for usage and usage requirements imposed by counties. We do have currently a number of employees, county administrator, 2 animal control officers, and the building code erosion sediment control biosolids inspector. That's a long title. We have 4 folks who receive county cell phones, but we also have employees, including the assistant county administrator and 2 maintenance workers who are on call after hours who use their cell phones for county business to contact vendors when there's a broken pipe or there's a need to reach out to somebody who is a contractor, replace a slate or fix a slate roof or a number of other things, and are on duty essentially 24/7. The county's emergency management coordinator, which you'll be hiring in the near future, would probably require a county-issued cell phone because that is a person who is going to be there all the time. And it's possible that your new planning and economic development director would be issued a stipend, much like we're proposing for Ms. Tomer as well as your maintenance folks. And understand now that the cell phone is a tool. It's a tool that an employee uses to stay in touch with folks after hours, do research on, and communicate with vendors on. And it's a very valuable tool. So we've developed a policy, and there are two tranches to this policy. One for cell phones issued by the county for those people such as your emergency management coordinator and county administrator. The other for those folks who have kind of a part-time need for a cell phone. The cell phones issued by the county for full-time use on the county plan would be fully paid for by the county as they are now. The other cell phones for folks who are not currently reimbursed would be reimbursed at a rate of about $35, or at a rate of $35 per month. This is very similar to policies which have been issued and approved by other jurisdictions, and there would be no impact on the budget. This will be factored into the current telephone line items of the budget, communication line items of the budget. So we've offered 3 motions for the board's consideration, and certainly as I leave, I would recommend that this be approved.
We need a motion to entertain the cell phone policy.
I move that the proposed cell phone reimbursement policy be approved as proposed with an effective date of September 1, 2021.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we approve the cell phone reimbursement policy with the date
September
2021.
September 1st.
Question.
It's good policy in the market. We've gone that direction. It's better than having people have 2 cell phones, personally.
Those in favor, let it be known by the usual sign.
Aye.
Those opposed, the ayes have it. Okay, employee compensation recommendation.
As I mentioned to the board, I believe it was at your after your August 5th meeting, or individually, we had an employee who was, we're in a highly competitive labor market right now. There are more jobs available than there are employees willing to work, and skilled employees are often being poached by other jurisdictions. That occurred in the county, it was around August the 5th, and
Yes.
You had an employee come in and say, essentially, hey, I've had an offer, and I said, oh, boy. You know, I didn't want to leave for Mr. Costin, the cupboard bare. The cupboard's pretty thin anyway as far as support in the county government. Hard-working, great folks, but there aren't many of them, okay? So I've issued a letter to this employee, and there's a memorandum in your package, in pages 109, 111, outlining my thought process in regard to compensation for this employee. This does not put the employee outside the board-approved salary grade of 16. It has no impact on the budget as described in the memorandum because you've had a number of savings already in the first part of the fiscal year. And you still have a balance left in the savings account of about a third of the $100,000 that have been saved. We provided motions to allow this employee to be moved into that pay grade, excuse me, not further into the pay grade as suggested. And that employee has been given 4 conditions and targets to meet before they get that second boost in compensation 6 months out. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay.
Gotcha, I see it.
Employee compensation.
I don't have any.
We need a motion to approve.
Mr. Chairman, after careful analysis of information provided by the former, that stumped me right there, I'm sorry, former interim county administrator, I move to adopt the compensation increases noted above with the effective date of August 1st, 2021.
I will second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we adopt the employee compensation policy. Recommendation. Question. Those in favor, let it be known by the usual sign.
Aye.
Those opposed, the ayes have it. Ms. Shackleton, will you discuss the transition advisor, please?
Yes. Mr. Chairman, over the last several months, we've been made aware of a number of deficiencies in our county's operations. Ms. Danzavino has actually shared with this board 52 situations or projects needing or requiring attention, and a number of these are critical in nature. At the board's request and with Mr. Costin's agreement, Mr. Anzavino has agreed to continue working primarily remotely with as-needed visits to Nottoway County as part-time transition advisor project manager to help ensure that during Mr. Costin's transition into his new role, and until we fill crucial roles of planning director and emergency management coordinator, that we'll be able to maintain a forward momentum on some of the projects that Mr. Anzavino has begun. Mr. Anzavino and Mr. Costin have identified a number of projects they feel would be well suited to remote part-time management by Mr. Anzavino. These projects include, but are not necessarily limited to, working with Ms. Tomer to redevelop the county's budget schedule process, to carry through the RFP process and consultant selection development of new compensation classification plan, updated personnel policies and employee performance evaluation system, to carry the broadband project through the application stage, to help coordinate the new animal shelter project from the design phase up to the bid process, to participate in committee work on the updated solar ordinance through the public hearing stage, and to work with ABM Engineering on heating and cooling systems at the courthouse complex. Ms. Danzavino's move into this temporary part-time remote role requires that the county and Ms. Danzavino execute a new employment agreement, a copy of which you've all been provided. I'm just going to summarize some of the components, major components of the agreement. Mr. Danzavino will be employed in the position of Project Manager, Transition Advisor. He will report to the County Administrator and the Board of Supervisors. He will assist the County Administrator in transitioning ongoing projects and in developing an understanding of county processes that are in place or have been recently developed. He'll assist the Board and the County Administrator in completion of mutually agreed upon projects and provide progress updates on assigned projects as requested. Mr. Anzavino's term of employment will be for an indefinite period not to exceed a period of 4 months. Employment can be extended or shortened by mutual agreement. He will continue to work at his current hourly rate of $65 per hour, with work hours not to exceed 32 hours per week. He will be eligible to participate in benefit programs, plans, or perks that are available to other part-time employees. The county will pay and reimburse Mr. Anzavino for reasonably incurred expenses in the furtherance of his duties, including personal vehicle, travel, meals, and accommodations while staying in Nottoway. Overnight lodging is not anticipated and must be approved by the county administrator in advance. The county will provide him a laptop computer for his use in association with the work during the terms of his employment agreement. And a number of other general provisions, including separation of employment that are part of the current contract under which Mr. Anzavino has been working, will remain in place. Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the employment agreement related to John Anzavino's employment as project manager, transition advisor, and said agreement to be executed by Mr. Anzavino, by the chairman of the Nottoway County Board of Supervisors and the deputy clerk of the board.
I will second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we appoint Mr. John Anzavino as project manager, transition advisor. Question?
Just comment, Mr. Chairman. I just want the public to understand our intent here. Mr. Anzavino, we were in a situation where I didn't know where we were going to turn to the left or to the right, and he came in and I'm telling you, he put us back on our feet, and we appreciate that. And we want Mr. Costin to get to come in this and be the leader that we are hoping he can be, but not be overwhelmed, and have a smooth transition. And I think it's a wonderful idea, and I'm looking forward to that, continue working with Mr. Anzavino and building a relationship with Mr. Costin.
Yes. Okay. Any other comments?
I love it.
I do too.
Let's keep this county moving forward.
I like
love
it too.
Call for the vote, Mr. Chairman.
Those in favor, let it be known by the usual sign.
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it. Mr. Anzavino.
We still don't get your name right.
Anytime you can get Chris Page to clap his hands for you. I couldn't miss that, Chris.
It's only been 4 months.
Okay, John, will you talk about?
Still mess up.
No.
I appreciate the confidence that the board has shown in me. You've been great to work with as your interim county administrator. As you know how I feel about the staff, and we'll continue to keep plugging away for Nottoway County.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. County attorney selection process. Mr. Ward.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to see the board take into consideration of moving forward with an RFP to secure the county's attorney. With this, my suggestion would be, of course, to leave Sands Anderson in place during this process, because the county should be represented by an attorney. And I don't think that cost should be the only factor into what firm the county eventually selects. But I think that at this point, there's been a lot of questions about funds and how this came about, and I think it's just appropriate that we move forward and do a proper RFP to secure the county attorney.
Any other comments?
Was that in form of a motion?
No, I was
Okay.
just.
That's a comment.
Okay, yes, Mr. Chairman. It seems like concerns about whether we followed appropriate procedure in engaging Sands Anderson keep coming back to us. I think we all seem to have different recollections of what we knew at the time the engagement was signed by the former county administrator. I feel like as long as the questions are hanging out there, the board would demonstrate a good faith effort to correct it by going ahead and following the appropriate procedure and putting out an RFP. But I do want to clarify that anything I'm suggesting here has nothing to do with a lack of confidence in Sands Anderson or in Vivian Giles. It's just simply any concerns about whether we were off base procedurally and whether we need to demonstrate a willingness to correct it.
I think so too. I don't think that the process was fair to Sands Anderson either. I think that at the end of the day, there may have been, whether some think it's justified or not, they just came here to do a job. So I was just looking to rectify the situation, and like I said, the RFP should be drafted by Mr. Costin and the staff and presented to us to be accepted before moving forward with it. But at the same time, I don't think the dollar figure should be the only thing we look at.
Steve? You know, and I get it with the RFP and you know, making sure we're being transparent in front of the public, so I'm just going to be transparent totally right now. Sands Anderson came in and gave us some great legal advice, and listened to some of the comments from some of the public tonight. Sounds like, you know, some other boards, we need to be looking at helping them with legal advice as well. But I get it with the RFP. I'm not arguing with that. I just do not want to lose a relationship with Sands Anderson because they've been so good to us. Well, and I can go into other details of that later with people face to face, but they did a good job, and I'm real thankful to have them on board as our legal representation. But I understand what you're asking.
Even then, Sands Anderson might be selected.
And that's what I'm saying. If Sands Anderson's the last one standing, I have no qualms with that whatsoever.
And you're right about the finance. You aren't going to get a very good quality like McGuire Wood, Battle Booth, or some of the other large firms. It's going to cost you.
Right.
And even my situation, I would not have gone into court without having someone of that stature. I'm going to be honest with you.
Right. I understand, and that's the reason why I said
But let me back up a long time ago. The Commonwealth Attorney used to be the county attorney.
Yes, sir.
All the way through Judge Gravitt, Mayor Gravitt. And then he was appointed a judge. And then we went with a local attorney because the Commonwealth Attorney, if I'm not, did not want to be the county attorney. Am I right?
I couldn't believe Ms. Royal did decide to not also be the county attorney. I will tell you, with our workload, it would do a disservice to the county to have those.
That's a good point, yeah.
Right.
That's right.
So we did that.
Right.
Okay. Good. Well, points well taken.
Yes, sir. So at this point, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to put a motion on the floor to begin the process for RFP to do the process of securing the next county attorney firm.
What's the term of Sands Anderson?
It's had been
Do they
established.
have a term, an end term?
No, sir.
No.
I don't know.
It's indefinite.
Do we need a second?
Okay. Thank you.
I'll second the motion.
Okay.
But Mr. Chairman, to be clear, from what Mr. Rourke said, you want to, they're still our, I want to be clear with everybody, they are still our attorney.
That's right, correct. They absolutely stay on board until a determination.
While we go through this process.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
And let me say this to everyone, so we make sure we understand what our future holds. And Mr. Costa, you cut in any time. It's been, counties have mentioned to me that we should, you know, we're dealing with solar power. We're dealing with planning commission things. That attorney may be more visible than what we're doing now. You know, we're doing these maintenance, because some people are saying, well, you got the attorney doing too much. I don't think so.
Maybe
in fact, I'm getting some criticism, why ain't you have them at some of the planning commissions to make sure we follow in the law?
And Steve, you're gonna have to have a large law firm.
That's right.
That have
But
different
anyway, I just wanted-
departments and
I just
can
wanted to
do
comment that-
one person couldn't do it.
Right. Okay.
Okay, this motion's on the floor. It's been moved and seconded that we go with the RFP in selecting a firm. Question. Those in favor, let it be known by the usual sign.
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it. Communication system. Sheriff Jones, will you come forward, please?
Very quickly, Mr. Chairman.
And Mr. Anzino, both of you.
Kind of introducing the sheriff on this because he's been the designated lead as the radio system, essentially proprietor. And I supported him until August 23rd when Mr. Costin came in. This reflects another deficiency in Nottoway County systems that have been identified, and the sheriff's going to tell you about it. But there was a lightning strike on the system, and he had to scramble and did an excellent job of putting the system together. Has a plan for you moving forward, but on August the 14th, the entire system was down and everything was being rerouted out of the county for VSIN as well as 911. And he and I first talked, it was pretty evident that he was under stress. So with that, the sheriff wants to address where we've been, where we are, and where we might go.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Like A said, as you're aware, we've had a number of issues in the communication center, starting with the first of 3 lightning strikes. The first storm and lightning strike was on Saturday the 14th. The center took what appeared to be a direct hit. At that time, all radio communications were affected along with 911, phones, VSIN, and other office equipment. At that time, all communications was handled by portables. We got an emergency phone and dispatch, cell phone, just for that kind of issue. And dispatchers were hand logging calls. Again, they were all routed, the 911 system was routed to Farmville. The next morning, given the initial assessment, we considered using the Blackstone Police Department Center as a temporary backup. But due to staffing concerns and progress made with the repairs, we set that aside at that time. At that time, we were loaned a base station by the Nottoway County Emergency Squad, and Victoria Communications Catch was contacted and responded and set up a base station and programmed both stations. So that evening, we had radio capabilities once again. Again, it was weaker than what we normally have because they were portable base stations. Comtronics, Centrally, both responded. They responded the night of the hit. They worked around the clock on the system in some form or another since the initial hit. A number of other items, computers, printers, 911 components were damaged in the strike. The agencies that we've been relying on for systems has been excellent, has been great. Farmville has been taking our 911 calls. Lunenburg County has been assisting with our VSIN calls or VSIN requirements. Victoria Communications, they answered every question we needed. Again, another storm passed through and it appears we were struck again, damaging more equipment. It appears a third lightning strike might have hit the building. We've been busy in the last 13 days. We had an electrician on site checking the grounding system for the office and the equipment. There were 3 loose grounding points found that have been addressed. We're not sure if that was the issue or was an issue as far as the lightning strikes. Direct hit of lightning is it's one of those things. At this time, 911 is back up and running. 7 of the 8 trunks are functioning. Now, the radio system is the elephant in the room. Comtronics has been working to get us a working console system. We need one for each dispatch station, which means we needed 2. The main parts of our system are approaching 30 years old. We have over the years been able to patch and maintain various aspects of the system to keep it running, but an event with so much damage to the equipment makes it difficult. Motorola does not service, make, or repair any parts for the radio system. And the maintaining of it has been due to the knowledge and diligence of we have 2 Comtronics persons that are assigned to our radio system. Those guys are excellent. They keep up with, when they find scrap parts, they take them, they keep them. but there are no parts available at this point to repair the current desk console. Comtronics, they have located 2 older consoles, and at this time, and fully configured one and installed it, and we're using it in the center. So one of the centers, one of the dispatch centers is fully functional. Keep my words twisted. But one of the dispatch centers at this point is back online, fully functional. Everything is online, phone, fax, 911. So we are back to handling business as usual. But we still have the other side. As you know, we have 2 terminals set up in dispatch. Those console units that we got are older than what we had. They were 2 generations before what we had. But we were fortunate they were found and were able to be made compatible to work in our system. The time has come, and it's not going to be an overnight project. It's not going to be a cheap endeavor either. But it does need to be placed in the future short-term plans and the long-term range plans as we move forward. This does have to be accomplished sooner than later. This will also take the cooperation of every entity in Nottaway County that uses a radio. The police agencies, the fire departments, and EMS, we all will need to come together at the table to get this done, and again, sooner rather than later. Myself, Mr. A, and staffers met with Comtronics personnel Tuesday, and there is now a coverage study underway to determine the requirements needed for the infrastructure of the new system. This will give us a starting point as we prepare to form a future public safety communications advisory committee of the radio system users. Unfortunately, this is not something we can kick down the road. There are a number of county projects that also must be accomplished, and this is the time to get this issue addressed. As with other issues in the county that the county has been hit with, I just want to take the time to thank my staff for their hard work in keeping the communications center operational. I also want to thank the public safety agencies we dispatch for who have offered a wide range of ideas and offers of assistance. As the plan comes together, I will work to keep you informed, engaged in the process, since you will need to know and better understand the cost, how a well-developed, well-thought-out communication system will work and better serve the Nottaway County citizens. And thank you for your time.
Thank you, Sheriff, and everything y'all do.
Mr. Bowen, you can see why this capital improvement fund is so important.
Yeah, I've always been told lightning don't hit the same spot twice, but you done laid a lie to that one.
Hey, it didn't do it twice; it did 3 times.
We needed that tonight.
Right. But I'm a true believer. The sheriff says we need it.
No question about it.
The county trusts him.
Okay.
I'm ready to build a new building tomorrow.
All right.
Okay, Sheriff, while you're up there, will you?
Any action for that tonight? We don't, no action for, none, okay. Just inform, okay.
No.
Informing y'all what's going on,
All right.
we need to start working toward in the future here.
Okay.
This new grant.
Katie.
Katie.
Okay, it was selective enforcement grant.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Katie, will you do that?
It's literally an annual grant that he
Yes.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Selective enforcement, I believe you see my officers out writing tickets for seat belts, speeding, that kind of thing.
Is there a name of that grant? You said it's a what? Selective?
Selective enforcement.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve to appropriate the selective enforcement grant for the sheriff's office.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we approve, that they approve the law enforcement grant. Question. Those in favor, let it be known by the usual sign.
Aye.
Those opposed, the ayes have it. Okay, the next, thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Mr. Tomer, will you, there's another grant too, the,
This request is here because, in case you all forgot, April, May, and June were a little chaotic around here. And when Ms. Stewart proposed her budget, pitched her budget to you all, there was inclusion in it that she may very well need a carrier of leftover funding. There was no follow-up letter closer to the end of the year, and it simply was overlooked. So that carryover money was not done to her request that was done in her budget.
okay.
Apparently this is required equipment.
Right, we must have it due to the new laws that went into effect the 1st of July.
No new voting machine is required for pre-processing. We pre-process 7 days before the election.
So you need a motion.
How much was the request?
23.
Oh, you got it.
Mr. Chairman, I want to say this too, just put it out there. I say this behind Angela Stewart's back all the time. I say she's rough around the edges, but she knows her job. And when I was running for election, she came up and she said, "Mr. Bowen, back off. You're within 40 or 50 feet. I can't remember. She scared me so bad I went 100 feet away from the pole. But what I'm getting at is, I think she did bring this up to us, and I don't know how it got lost in the shuffle. And I know you were going to make the motion, Ms. Simmons. I support it 100%.
You're seconding that motion.
But let's let her make it.
I move that the registrar's office can carry over $23,000 left from our budget from line item 400-13010-3004 to pay for the attached equipment that was quoted before the end of the budget cycle.
Ms. Simmons, it won't be a carryover because the fiscal year end is already passed.
Okay, so,
It would actually be a new appropriation.
okay. I move to appropriate the $23,000 left in the budget from line item 1400-13010-3004 to pay for the attached equipment that was quoted before the end of the budget cycle.
It's been moved and seconded by Mr. Bowen.
A second, yeah.
Question. Those in favor, let it be known by the usual sign.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Thank you. Okay, Sunday vote. That's the one that we added.
Mr. Chairman,
Costume.
members of the board, ladies and gentlemen, all right, now that this item is on the agenda, let me again state that the communication that came from the Virginia Department of Elections came in on Monday with a grant deadline of September 3. This is money that came out of the special session of the General Assembly, $3 million to be basically spread across the state. As luck would have it, the point of contact on this grant is a former colleague of mine at VDM. So I was able to reach out to them and ask some questions. One of the speakers pointed out that this is an allowance by the state. It allows for Sunday voting and is not a mandate to have Sunday voting. He indicated that there is very little data on the success of Saturday voting, the extent of Saturday voting. He indicated that the county could open all, but really only needed to open one site on those Sundays. And then yesterday in the conversation, I asked, well, what is the criteria for the grant selection here? And he said that was to be determined. And today, I called him back because there was another question, and he said, well, the grant criteria is now first come, first serve. So it's a race. I did ask the question of, okay, so are you, in this matter, how do you divide up that money? And he said, it's first come, first serve. And he says, we divide it, we push it out the door as the requests come in. He said, what will be the interesting one if a locality puts in for the grant and what they have left doesn't cover everything that the county has asked for. It is a reimbursement grant, which means we would have to put the money out. It might cause a line item to go red, but we could get the money back. We have to step back for a moment. If the application goes forward, if it's successful, okay, so it's in a competitive time situation, and then my experience with grants tells me that we will see some documentation that comes in, an agreement letter, an understanding letter that we would have to sign off on. So that is, to the best of my understanding, the facts of the situation in terms of this grant. I think everybody's been put in a very, very bad situation because of the rush that's associated with it, but it's the cards we've been dealt. That's the information I have for you. I'd be happy to take any questions and try to answer any questions you might have.
Mr. Al, I saw Mr. Al. Come on up, please.
With that grant, the information department, it doesn't stop with this election. You have to provide that funding every election with no money. I just want to make that clear.
So it's kind of like this.
You can't go out and approve Sunday voting in the next election, say, oh, we're not doing it, no one gave us any money. That's not treating our public or voters right.
I'm not sure if that's 100% accurate. This Sunday voting is an expansion of, it's just an expansion of early voting as it is. In the grant, I didn't see anywhere that it said it was gonna be mandatory every year.
The Department of Elections issued that. Once we implement Sunday voting, we can't reel it back in. Just like our satellite. We chose to go forward with it, and you continue that service for your vote.
Wait a minute. I didn't recognize you. I recognized her. And we have the dialogue going between them.
Mr. Chairman.
Then I'll get to you.
If I may, this is, and I'm sorry it's all marked up, but this is the only documentation that we've received.
But we just had it at our meeting in Salem, and that was brought up.
Is there?
Another thing I'd like to say.
Can I get my question?
Yes.
This is the only document that we've received. This is all we're going on, plus my phone call with Mr. Hill.
Kevin.
Yes, Kevin Hill. Is there any other documentation that you all have received?
We have not received documentation, but I just attended the meeting in Salem, Virginia, where this very subject was brought up. And that's what we're hearing from the Department of Elections. It was a warning accepting this grant, that you don't offer a service to your voters, then take it back. And some of this, the last Sunday is not an option for Nottoway County. Unfortunately, this board has never been into my office to discuss it at all.
And to be clear, I'm not taking sides on this and making a recommendation. I'm trying to draw information out for the. I'm trying to draw out information for the board. And I have heard that it is required that if you take it this time, you have to take it in the future. I've also heard that's not the case. This is a one-year, one-shot situation. Do you have any documentation one way or the other?
You are correct. When it comes to grant funding, it's a one-time deal.
Okay, thank you.
The early voting Sunday voting would continue with your locality paying for it.
Not right now.
And again, I can only go with what I've been told from Mr. Hill, is that it's Dillon rule. It's allowable, but it's not mandated.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. All right. Okay, this information was given to the board. I'm going to get it from another electoral board. I have two more electoral board members in here. Okay, Ms. Allen.
Sir, it's to my understanding that this is a grant opportunity for this year, and it's first come, first served. It's 95 counties in Virginia, and at this point, I think with Lunenburg agreeing Wednesday or Tuesday, 14 counties have approved it. So we have an excellent chance of obtaining this grant, this reimbursement grant.
Okay.
I just want to make sure that everybody in Nottoway has an opportunity to vote. And then I don't know exactly what to say to y'all, so if you have any questions specifically, I would try, and I would defer to my chair and my secretary to help answer the questions, just so we can be transparent.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Page, will you?
Ms. Tucker's here too. Ms. Tucker.
I think what Angela's trying to get at is if we offer a service to voters now, we will have to offer that service to them. You can't take, hey, we're doing Sunday voting and next election not have it. I am asking you guys
for this money because the board has approved Sunday voting. But in your decision, I would ask you to consider this Sunday voting passed yesterday. The registrar needs staff. If you pass this, is she going to have time to create a new position, hire full-time staff, market it, interview, hire them, go through all the training process before October? And I don't think that's going to be the answer. We may pass this and then not be able to do it. And the way in the state of getting a grant out, which they did August 17th, shouldn't create havoc here in our government. Government is supposed to function efficiently. I never said I was against Sunday voting. I'm against it on this cycle because we don't have time to plan, prepare, and staff. We also have officers of elections that don't want to work. We've got to find some that do want to work on Sunday. That's going to take time. This is something that the board tabled August 3rd to the budget session of February 22. And if they had taken it up at that time, they would have had time to plan these things out for the next election cycle. That would be the responsible thing to do here. The pressure that we put on the registrar, it's not on the board to get this done, it's on her to get it done. And how long has this county been looking for an emergency services coordinator and just trying to create that position?
We're not talking
Okay.
about that.
Now I'm gonna give
Point that out.
I'm gonna give the board a chance to deal.
It's kind of the same thing.
Ms. Tucker?
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Tucker wants to.
Miss-
I really hadn't planned to talk. Thank you for allowing me at this time. We keep hearing about the office and having this. She's going to have to hire a new staff member anyway. Mr. Page gave us at the last meeting what he said, projections. I hadn't seen a budget until yesterday, last night's meeting. This is a projection of expenditure for the whole Sunday voting in Nottaway County. Another full-time staff would have to be rehired. And I think he sent you all a thing that said $38,000. What he gave us was $35,000. For each day of Sunday voting, the estimated cost of taxpayers of Nottaway County, $1,926 in staffing costs. In addition to the above mentioned, $234 would be the cost of the additional full-time staffer, not including the registrar's salary and mileage, bringing a conservative projection to $2,164, in addition to the $35,000 she said for the new staff. My thing is, they keep saying they had these votings and only this number voted and that number voted. I don't care how many people voted. It's that they had the opportunity to do so. We are being the constitutional thing. And a lot of the opposition was church and state. I mean, Sunday, people going to church. And I made the statement that we go to church, we get out at 1, and I know a whole lot of those guys run and grab the hot wings, Redskin TVs, and some beers. That's keeping this advertisement for this whole. We were called, 2 people got up and said we were biased. We are the most unbiased electoral board that's been there for the past 10 years. If we go back to boards, we could check it out. I'm not here to argue. I'm in favor of Sunday voting. You all fund it, I would be so appreciative. If you don't, then we'll have to go with what you say do. But we've already approved Sunday voting. And I see nothing wrong with it. And if we have to continue it, why not, when the budget for the registrar's office is made, the electoral board be part of it, she be part of it, and we allocate money for Sunday voting. And maybe we can cut down on something else.
Okay.
I mean, I am for Sunday voting.
Thank you. I'm gonna let Mr. Costin talk. We only have about 12 minutes. We only have 12. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, no more comments from the audience.
Just so everyone knows, we have received a communication which I shared with the board, and it was from Mr. Page. It included all the other members of the electoral board, but just so folks know, the the numbers that we're looking at, $4,224 for officers. That's officers of election electoral board budget. 38,000 new full-time registered staff member registrar budget. $300 voting machine tech. That's voting equipment electoral board budget. And $792 in training officers of election line item for total allocation or request of $43,316. So those are the numbers that we're talking about, and I conveyed that to the board either by email or hard copy.
Okay, board, it's time for the board to make a decision, one way or the other. Steve?
Let me say this. So, Mr. Page is he's the kind of guy, he's hard to love. Okay, I'll be the first to tell you. I've been in this courtroom, not sitting up here, sitting there down, and a judge up here. But I do respect him, and I do believe he tries to do the right thing. And I'm totally, I don't want to, I think everybody's got the right to vote. But I listen to these people that's in the trenches. I've stood out there, and that's a 12-hour, that's a long day. And you're talking about Sundays too? That's a lot of work, and they're telling you it's going to be hard on them. I mean, I get what management says, but my ears perk up when I hear the people in the trenches. And I mean, and I don't, you know, some of us might say, well, they're Republicans. I don't know. I hear that. I just think that we need to listen to the staff as well, the people that we're paying that's in the trenches.
Okay. Lynn?
Mr. Chairman, I think my primary consideration about this is whether we provide Nottoway County voters with sufficient opportunities and accessibility to vote in elections. And as everyone's presented tonight, I went through today and I considered we've got, the 45-day period prior to every election for early voting at the registrar's office and the satellite office. And that, as I understand, the satellite office is, and if my understandings are wrong, Angela, please correct me, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and alternate Saturdays.
Yes.
Voters have the opportunity to cast absentee votes. Applications for absentee voting can be submitted by mail, fax, or email. It's my understanding that exceptions to absentee voting deadline are available in the case of illnesses and other emergencies and unexpected obligations. The Virginia Department of Elections website says curbside voting is available for age 65 or older or those with physical disabilities. It just goes on as options for accessibility. I feel like there are sufficient opportunities, and I am not in favor of, won't be in favor of Sunday voting at this time.
I'm in favor of Sunday voting for the mere fact that you have to give people the equal opportunity to vote. And some of you may not understand that, but for a long time, African Americans couldn't vote. For a long time, women couldn't vote. And if we have the opportunity to give a person on Sunday that may have a ride to the polls to vote, I think we need to give them that opportunity.
I got the floor, Mr. Chair. Y'all can see here, and I would share this with the audience as well. Got a whole list here.
You better get through that list very soon.
All right.
I'm getting ready to call this meeting to her.
I just want to touch on a couple of key points. Number one, I ran on change, okay? But beyond anything, and I think most of the people in this room would agree on one thing unquestionably. This is not fair to this board. This is absolutely not fair to put this board in this situation with this type of a time frame. And
That I agree.
that's right. But at the same time, there is a board that has made a decision. And that decision was to move forward with this. What I don't like is boards having to come to other boards to execute their decisions. Back in January, February of 2020, it was one of those 2 months, we had the militia issue standing here in front of us. And I stood up here and I said I was not going to let partisan politics rip this county apart. I'm only one man, and it's inevitable. It's done it. My first priority has always been the health, safety, and welfare of the citizens in Nottoway County. And simply put, COVID-19, it's not getting any better. There's the Delta variant. These politics are ripping our neighbors apart. People that have been cordial for decades here in these past elections are just at each other's throat, throwing trash in their yards. It's the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen in my life. And it's all because of the name of politics. Them state people, those federal Congress people, they don't have to look their neighbors in the face. Because when they walk in the room, they're all with one thing, politicians. We're not politicians up here. We're not politicians out here in this audience. We are neighbors, and we are friends. And this is what politics has done to us. I heard the word mentioned about there's a possibility that this might be illegal. Is it? We're not even being afforded the opportunity here to ask our attorney. What is the legal precedence of this? And I hear from the electoral board that under different circumstances, they would all be in favor of Sunday voting, or okay with that. Well, sir, I'm looking at the electoral board members, and they said yes. So you back there shaking your head, that's not important to me.
Mr. Page.
No, it's not Mr. Page that was shaking his head. Mr. Page was shaking his head that I was correct.
Okay.
It was somebody else shaking their head in disagreement that's not on that board. I was addressing the 3 board members.
Well, I'm not going to have a discussion at this stage. You're all the talking you want to talk.
But bottom line, they have a governing body. They've made a decision. I do have some concerns. If it's not a 100% refundable, who's on the hook for it? Didn't we just make that determination and turn crew away for that? I'm just being fair. I'm playing devil's advocate here. Mr. Ricky Rash expressed that 99% of the opinions expressed were credible, and that's on both sides. We're also talking about resources. And the employees that have to pull this off, it's very stressful on them. What I want to know too, is there any negotiations in this? Is there one Sunday instead of 2? Is it 4 hours instead of the full day? Is there any negotiation in this where these neighbors will not be at each other's throat?
Sarah, do you know the answer to that?
Yes. We can negotiate. It's agreeable. So we can make it one Sunday. We can make it from 1 to 5. We can do that.
Okay, because that's what I was seeing here in the stuff. So all I'm asking is, what is best for this county? What is best for these citizens to be together? To be together. Is there one thing that we can do? Is there some negotiation? Can we do it a half day on one Sunday and see what it is? And then if that money's not there, we can always expand it, guys. We can. We can always expand it with the budget item. So I'll put it back to the board members. One Sunday, 4 hours. What do y'all think about that?
I wouldn't have a problem with that, John.
Would the electoral board have any issues with that?
We suggested that in our meeting.
Okay.
Went from 4 to 2 to maybe 1 Sunday.
What time you got? What time you got?
9:59.
And that could cause people to work actually almost 14 days anymore. Without a day off.
9:59.
I don't want them to call a meeting. Is there a consensus? Can you do one Sunday, 4 hours? I put a motion on the floor.
Okay. I'll second that motion. John.
What is the motion?
The motion would be to approve one Sunday at their discretion for 4 hours for Sunday voting and apply for reimbursement.
She says it's gonna take extra staff.
My motion would simply be because they are sitting here telling us they were chosen to go in there by the two political parties that are ripping this county apart. They were chosen by that. So if they're the voice of reason and they're coming together and they're saying, we'll do something kind, we're looking at budget time, and we would only be on the hook for 4 hours unless there's something worked out down the road next budget cycle.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman, for staff's clarification, you're saying apply for a grant to fund one Sunday for 4 hours?
Yes.
I just want that clarity. Thank you. It's for application of a grant, which may or may not be successful.
Correct.
It's been moved and seconded that we apply for a grant.
And I have to, wait a minute. Well, I have to say something before this. I agree. The electoral board made a decision last night. It was no need to come to us. The electoral board is the one that they elected the
parties elected.
Right, they are elected. They should be the ones to make the decision, and that's the decision they made last night. So bringing us into it is why?
Steve, it's one of those things you mentioned a long time ago, brother, about putting us in the weeds. Like I said, I'll be the first to say, it won't fail. It's not fail.
Okay. I'm going to either run the motion.
Okay.
Okay. The question, we've already done the question. Those in favor, let it be known by the usual sign.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
No.
No.
Okay, it's a 3-2 vote. Okay.
Vote on, what motion did it say to apply for a grant or to provide a grant funding for the electoral board?
Apply for grant.
A grant.
Apply for grant.
Now, wait a minute. I have to poll, at this point, I have to poll my board members if they want to continue this.
Meeting, continue the meeting.
Continue the meeting.
Because of the
This is one of our regulations. If you want to, if one member said no, then the meeting is over for that night. Okay, I'll start with you.
I'm fine to keep moving on.
I'm fine.
Continue.
Continue.
Okay, you want to take a 10-minute break?
Let's move on.
No, let's go through, get through this.
Okay.
So we have another
Mr. Chairman,
meeting.
did you need a break, sir? Did you need a break?
Well, I'll be all right.
Okay.
But I'm going to take a break between this meeting and another. We have a meeting after this meeting. Okay. Down to consent calendar. What's your pleasure?
Motion to approve the consent calendar.
It's been moved that we approve the consent calendar.
Second.
It's been seconded. Those in favor, let it be known by the usual sign.
Aye.
Those opposed, the ayes have it. Okay, correspondence. You have a correspondence from the
Town of Burkeville.
Town of Burkeville.
You have the correspondence from the town of Burkeville. You have one for the Virginia Department regarding preliminary request for permission to enter county property. If unless there are concerns or questions with those. I will point out, this is good news, an additional correspondence that we have received from the Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services, Division of Animal and Food Industry Services. This is a report on the condition of the animal shelter. And I'm advised for the first time in a long time, the animal shelter was found to have no significant findings of non-compliance, no minor findings. In other words, everything was
Great.
perfect.
I do need a break.
Okay. Take a break.
Call for a recess.
Recess.
Call for a recess. 10 minutes. Meeting is back in order. Correspondence, have you done that?
I did the correspondence, Mr. Chairman, noting the added item with the great report on the animal shelter.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So no.
Do your update.
Oh, you have your information items, which are in your packet, beginning at page 175 through page 221. My update is very quick. Been here 4 days. Had a pretty eventful week. First off, I want to say that everybody, particularly the county staff, has just been very, very patient and kind and considerate as I onboard. Just really super friendly folks. I really appreciate that. The staff is reaching out to set up some meetings with me and the constitutional officers and some other folks that I need to get to know and speak to. I have attended the Board of Zoning Appeals meeting. I ended up presenting there. Wasn't planned, but called on. Senator Warner's visit with several of you. I had breakfast this morning with the mayors and town managers to discuss some economic development issues. I consulted with them on how my plan is to proceed with the vetting and hiring of that position. And of course, Ms. Shackleton has already noted the 52 item that Mr. Anzavino and I went through. I told Ms. Tomer, I said, hey, it's 52, perfect. One item a week, and we'll have it all done. So, but it's been a very active and fun-filled week, and I assure you that I cannot wait to find some place to stay in Nottoway. So I'm looking forward to, and I've got folks out there working and helping me out on that as well. So thank you all again for this opportunity, and I'd be happy to take any questions you have on my thorough and in-depth 4-day report.
No, it's good. Okay.
We good?
Okay. Comments from the board. We'll start with you, Ms. Simmons.
Oh, I just want to thank Mr. Anzavino for coming in and saving us. Basically, you've done a great job, and we really appreciate everything that you've helped us with.
I'm gonna save mine until you leave.
And I want to, and I'm glad you're gonna still be here with us.
Yeah.
And Mr. Costin, thank you. You've been a breath of fresh air too, coming
Thanks.
in.
I appreciate that.
So we appreciate that.
Mr. Rourke.
Just want to reiterate Ms. Simmons' words there. Ted, welcome. Glad to have you. You seem to be a very, very humble and wise man. And Mr. Anzavino, I've told you privately what I think of you, and I've even attempted to adopt you. So I think that says everything that I want.
God.
So
Oh, my God.
I think the world of you, sir, and
Steve, did
thank
you
you
hear
for what
that?
you've
I couldn't
done.
believe it.
But Mr. Chairman, just one quick item.
Okay.
Yesterday was the hottest day we had in the county. And I got a phone call that the forest was on fire near where I lived. So as I got closer, I realized it was not my house, but it was the property adjacent to me. Big, huge mushroom cloud, looked like an atomic bomb that went off back there.
Wow.
I went down the driveway, looked, and if Crew and Burkeville and Blackstone had not responded when they did, it'd have been a hell of a forest fire back there. The grass was over top of your knees. The structure that was burning was about a 2 or 3 story size barn, had hay in the top of it, and the wood line was probably less than 100 feet from it. Wow. Without their response, we'd had a hell of a fire on our hands here in Nottoway County. And they put every piece of wood, and he was sitting right there, he's there. And then Amelia, Jetersville Company, Kimbridge responded, Fort Pickett responded. It was just a hell of an effort. I was there to witness that. It's not that I appreciated seeing it, you know, the fire and the destruction to that property, but fortunately, was not someone's house, but the effort that they put forward, you just can't replace it here in Ottawa. You can't. And thank y'all. Thank y'all for what y'all do. I know other than you guys, nobody's here tonight, but they can see it there. And I won't speak for y'all, but thank y'all for everything y'all do.
Thank you, too.
Thank you. Lynn?
Just echoing sentiments of the others, John Anzavino, thanks so much for everything, and we look forward to continued work on projects with you for a while. And Mr. Costin, welcome, and look forward to working with you as well.
Steve?
I'm not gonna thank him, guys. I'm too tired tonight. But I do want to. I want to just say this. Look, you know, we're in an age of outrage, and I had a BACO meeting the next day, Friday. I went back, and that's what they talked about is safety for county elected officials, and it's something we need to really take serious. There's a lot of threats of county officials across the state. One guy he had to bring in a security system. And I got great concern if we having these meetings and people are being outraged, and one of these days we're gonna have problems. So we do need to take Ricky Rash's point of maybe some type of training, and I don't know how to unfold that, but I think it's something we need to take a strong look at in the future. So. Just wanted to bring that to your attention, and because let me tell you what's happening. We saw these young people in here today, and it was a smart move to get them out of here. They're the ones, they're our future. And can you imagine if they was to witness something, hateful remarks, do you think they would want to go into politics or become a county administrator? Them little girls could be a county administrator just like Mr. Costin and Mr. Anzavino. And so, but just keep that in mind. We need to set examples for these young people and let them. It's time for they come up and take our spots. That's what it's all about. So.
You know, not a board member said no when we proposed that.
That's right. I think it's a good move.
It was a good move. But I'm gonna say, Ted, welcome, and
thank you, sir.
Thank you for all you've done so far. Mr. John A., you've been a breath of fresh air. You really have. To us, and we appreciate it. I want you to know the citizens of Nottoway appreciate it.
Oh yeah.
And thank you very much.
And if I could piggyback on Steve, not only meetings like our meetings and the electoral board meetings, but the meetings that I attend as a member, and Mr. Anzavino can attest to the one that I attend every month.
We lucky here. We got the Superman sheriff. He got hit by lightning 3 times. We good.
You guys go back to one of my goals. You know, I didn't do but 6 goals, but one of the goals that we came up with was civility.
That's right.
And we've tried to have civility in our meetings. And sometimes the audience think I'm being, when I have to call them down on this, that, or the other, I say you can't do this. But I'm not being mean, it's just that I like to see civility take place. And that's what I hope we can do. Okay, I'm going to adjourn this meeting now. That doesn't mean you guys got to leave.
Gotcha.
Motion to adjourn, sir.
Second.
It's been moved that we adjourn. It's been moved and seconded that we adjourn. Those in favor, let it be known by usual sign.
Aye.
Those opposed?
No,
Ayes have it.
You posing?
Full of themselves
Time you
today.
go home, John.
Yeah.
Mr. Hill, will you come forward, please?
Mr. Hill.
We need to, Mr. Chairman, I think, no, shut up. Yeah, do we need to approve?
Need to call to order.